Chapter 11:13. It was easy to understand why the Wui Mountain Cave was not as good as the Jihuan Mountain Cave, because it could be seen from the spiritual treasures of their respective masters. Although Wui Mountain was ranked as the 70th blessed land among the 36 heavens, it was occupied by Chao Baoshao and Shao Sheng, two individual cultivators who had not reached the golden immortal realm. Although the Treasurefall coin was a top-notch spiritual treasure with endless magical uses, it was only an upper-middle, top-notch spiritual treasure in the beginning. Besides, it could only drop 3 treasures every day and no weapons. However, Jihuan Mountain was the Taoist field of Ksitigarbha. Ksitigarbha was not only a disciple of the sage, but also an existence second only to Buddha in Buddhism in the future. In terms of status, he was above Guanyin, Dipankara, and others. In terms of cultivation, no one dared to say that they were better than him except Kong Xian and abundant treasures. After all, he was the existence that suppressed the veteran expert Mingi. The reincarnation mirror, a spiritual treasure bred in Jihuan Mountain, was a first-class existence. It was a treasure that had reached the limit of top-notch spiritual treasure. Even if it was not as good as the 10 top-notch primordial spiritual treasures of desolation, it was only slightly weaker. Of course, these were not of much use to Fang Qingshan. Fang Qingshan was not very interested in these things that could not be taken away or occupied. Even Fang Qingshan of the overseas 3 Immortal Island was like this, not to mention Jihuan Mountain. The only thing that he valued in Jihuan Mountain was the reincarnation mirror, because Haotian Mirror and Reincarnation Mirror were the treasures of the reincarnation demon god. When the 3 were combined, they could restore the primordial supreme treasure. If they were combined with the original primordial supreme treasure, Reincarnation Mirror, it could not only better help Fang Qingshan cultivate and comprehend the law of reincarnation, but also better assist Fang Qingshan in comprehending the law of reincarnation. From then on, Fang Qingshan would have another treasure in his hands. As soon as he entered Jihuan Mountain, there was no need for the Treasurefall coin to continue to guide him, because Fang Qingshan had already sensed a strong aura belonging to the reincarnation mirror. If he had not suppressed it, the reincarnation mirror from Wu People's secret vault would have flown out of his hand. Just like when he first encountered the Haotian Mirror and Kunlun Mirror, the reincarnation mirror could not wait to devour the treasures in front of him. Compared to the previous 2 mirrors, this one was even more urgent. After all, although the Haotian Mirror and the Kunlun Mirror were both transformed from the fragments of the reincarnation mirror, in the process of evolution, they had absorbed fragments of space and time spirit treasures, heavenly materials, and earthly treasures, or even laws. They had already transformed into time and space treasures, which were somewhat impure. Without needing to sense anything, Fang Qingshan also looked toward the core of Mount Jihua, which was also the tallest peak, the 10 Monarchs Peak. Because the fluctuation was coming from there, Fang Qingshan moved his feet and instantly appeared at the foot of the 10 Monarchs Peak. The closer they got, the stronger the aura of the 2 treasures became. The aura of the 2 treasures resonated with each other. Although there were many twists and turns, it could not conceal the aura of the 2 treasures. After wandering on a mountain path for a while, Fang Qingshan stopped in front of a cave deep inside the mountain. A misty green light shone from within, accompanied by bursts of mysterious pressure. Upon entering, there was a misty green light everywhere, accompanied by bursts of pressure. In a trance, those who didn't know might think it was the golden plate of 6 paths of reincarnation of Hutu. In a big cave with a circumference and a height of thousands of feet, a cyan bronze mirror was floating in the center, emitting bursts of cyan light. On it, the vision of a nether hell and the 6 paths of reincarnation loomed. This was the reincarnation mirror, which was exactly the same as the reincarnation mirror that Fang Qingshan had obtained from the secret vault of Wu People. The only difference was that the one in front of him was a primordial supreme treasure, while the one in front of him was just a top primordial spiritual treasure. But they were all of the same origin, and were closer to each other than the Haotian Mirror and the Kunlun Mirror. Good. I've worn out iron shoes in fruitless searching, but found it by chance. Seeing the reincarnation mirror, Fang Qingshan was in a good mood. He had all three mirrors. If he could combine them into one, it could become a primordial supreme treasure. If he could combine the reincarnation mirror from the secret vault of Wu people, even if it couldn't become a primordial spiritual treasure, it would at least not be weaker than the 24th grade red lotus of fire. Fang Qingshan waved his hand and took the reincarnation mirror in his hand. Although in the original orbit, the destined person of the reincarnation mirror was Ksitigarbha. But obviously, nothing was absolute. Because Fang Qingshan had the aura of the reincarnation devil, his karma was stronger. Of course, the most important thing was strength. Not only people, but also spiritual treasures. Under the same conditions, spiritual treasures were also more willing to follow the strong. Therefore, the reincarnation mirror didn't resist at all. As soon as Fang Qingshan waved his hand, it threw itself into his arms. Of course, even if it wanted to resist, it was completely useless. Given Fang Qingshan's strength, suppressing the reincarnation mirror was just a piece of cake. Just as Fang Qingshan obtained the reincarnation mirror, Ksitigarbha, who was on his way to Mount Jihua, suddenly felt lost, as if he had lost something very precious or an opportunity. Naturally, he didn't know that Fang Qingshan had obtained the supreme treasure for his Tao attainment in the future. Even if he knew, he could only sigh and say that it was God's will. As for Fang Qingshan, he naturally wouldn't pay attention to a junior like Ksitigarbha. Not to mention him, even Jane Juni was not worthy of his attention. At this stage, he wouldn't pay much attention to ordinary primordial chaos saints at all. He didn't even have much nostalgia for the whole desolation realm. After all, his original body, Mosquito Dowrin, had broken through to the primordial chaos realm and taken a big step forward to the mid-stage primordial chaos realm. Moreover, he had both Dharma and body. Even the World Tree clone was almost there. After obtaining the creation wood, he would obtain millions and tens of millions of origin power, and the world Tao would be perfected. As long as he completely fused with the creation wood, breaking through would be a matter of course. As for the timeless arc, he had also broken through to the supreme level. Below Hongjun Tiandao, Fang Qingshan could be said to be unstoppable. Even if he couldn't win, at least it wouldn't be difficult for him to escape. Therefore, the current desolation realm was no longer very attractive to Fang Qingshan. He still had a few tasks that he hadn't completed. One was the integration of the reincarnation mirror, which was considered an important method for him to cultivate the reincarnation law in the future. The second was to borrow the 6 paths of reincarnation golden plate from the Lady of Earth. It was also for the reincarnation law, but whether it would succeed or not depended on it. Then, there was the arrangement for the Bloodsea clan. After all, it was his own fate. Once he left, the entire Bloodsea would probably be in big trouble. Finally, and of course, the most important thing was to wait for the World Tree clone to completely integrate and break through. After that, Fang Qingshan could leave the desolation realm with Yang, Mei, and head to the endless void and the various realms. Although the desolation realm was not bad, it was still a little small, especially after breaking through to the primordial chaos realm. It would be even more difficult to improve. If Fang Qingshan hadn't had the eternal blessing and obtained the opportunity from the secret vault of the Wu people, he was afraid that his cultivation level would be similar to Sanqing and the others at most. Chapter 11:14. The Bloodsea. After getting the 3 mirrors, Fang Qingshan couldn't wait to return to the Bloodsea. He was eager to fuse the 4 mirrors together. Just like when the congenital 5 flags were combined and the 5 lotus seeds devoured each other. Now, Fang Qingshan was going to repeat the same trick. He wanted the best reincarnation mirror to devour the 3 top primordial spiritual treasures: Reincarnation Mirror, Haotian Mirror, and Kunlun Mirror. They would help him transform the law of reincarnation. Buzz! A big cauldron with 2 ears, 4 feet, and 8 faces stood up. Its whole body was neither gold nor jade, copper nor iron. It was covered with many strange totems and ancient seal scripts. At first glance, there was nothing special about it. But when you look carefully, it was full of brilliance. The cauldron's belly was full of the major events that the cauldron of heaven and earth had participated in. There was the scene of Nuwa creating a human and becoming a saint. There was the scene of Mount Bujo falling and refining the five-colored stone to mend the sky. There was the grand occasion of smelting the congenital five flags and the five lotus seats becoming primordial supreme treasures. In addition, there were all kinds of shapes, including the sun, moon, stars, heaven, earth, mountains, rivers, wind, thunder, and rain, as small as animals, plants, insect scales, and monsters that had never been seen before. A scholar who has been away for 3 days should be looked at differently. This was true for the cauldron of heaven and earth. In the past, when it was in the hands of the ancestor of heaven and earth, it was only good. In terms of attack, it was only a little better than the sword of Avicii, and in terms of defense, it was only a little better than the 3 books of heaven, earth, and man. The only powerful thing was that it could reverse the primordial. But at that time, the whole desolation was not rare, not to mention the primordial, but the acquired. So this function was quite useless. Not to mention the 3 treasures of opening the heavens. Even the Godslayer was not much inferior to it, except that its grade was inferior and it could not suppress luck. However, as it fell into the hands of Fong Qing Shan, the situation was very different. First, it helped Fong Qing Shan smelt the 2 treasures, the congenital 5 flags and the 24-grade red lotus of fire. When the 2 supreme treasures were formed, their Taoist rhymes leaked out. The heaven and earth cauldron naturally benefited greatly. After that, Nuwa created a human and refined rocks to mend the heavens. These were 2 major events that added merit to his body. Although the cauldron of heaven and earth still couldn't compare to the 3 treasures of opening the heavens, and it couldn't even compare to the Godslayer that had fused with the demon god of massacre, it still far surpassed the 5 elements flags and the heaven-measuring primordial ruler in Fong Qing Shan's hands. According to its grade, it had already reached the ranks of high-grade innate cardinal treasures. With the help of this treasure, the speed at which Fong Qing Shan refined the mirrors was naturally much easier and faster. Go! Fong Qing Shan gently pointed. The reincarnation mirror, Haotian mirror, and Kunlun mirror in Mount Jiuhua fell into the cauldron of heaven and earth almost at the same time. Cauldron refines the heavens and earth. Return to origin. Fong Qing Shan let out a soft cry and formed a seal with both hands. His hands were like butterflies flying through flowers as he struck out a series of seals. As he pointed at the huge cauldron, the refining laws and arrays in the cauldron began to spin. There was a sound that sounded like flowing water. It was as if the 3 mirrors were rice that was being washed in the cauldron. However, the 3 mirrors were not rice. They were top-grade, innate, numinous treasures. Even ants would try to live, let alone these top-grade, innate, numinous treasures. Although they didn't have spiritual intelligence, their spirituality was not inferior to that of intelligent creatures. They felt as if they were about to be refined and return to their original forms, losing their spirituality. Although they were facing the heaven and earth cauldron of a higher grade than them, the 3 mirrors still began to struggle. Clang, 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 clang. There was the manifestation of reincarnation, the formation of the 6 paths, the cycle of life and death. There were the 4 directions, the vast and boundless, bearing together and containing everything. There were the flowers of spring, the fruits of autumn, and the beauty of an instant since ancient times. Reincarnation, space, time. The 3 mirrors directly manifested their 3 top-grade origin laws. They constantly collided with each other, trying to break through the cauldron's refining array. It was like 2 armies facing each other. The cauldron of heaven and earth was the trend of the times. It was upright and domineering. The 3 mirrors, on the other hand, were like cornered beasts that would fight until death. As long as there was a chance of survival, they would not give up until the last moment. They collided with each other, their strength increasing, their nomological laws becoming stronger, and their frequency increasing. In the end, there were even strange phenomena and sounds that spread outside the cauldron of heaven and earth. The entire cauldron of heaven and earth was shaking. Fortunately, the cauldron of heaven and earth was not what it used to be. Fang Qingshan also had the absolute power to suppress it. Otherwise, the outcome would have been unpredictable. The reason for this was naturally because the three mirrors came from the same source. At the critical moment of life and death, although they were unwilling to fuse with each other, they could be like Sanxing and the 12 Zhu Wu. They could form a formation and resist step by step. This was also the reason why the cauldron of heaven and earth could not be completely refined right away. If not for the power of the cauldron of heaven and earth and the support of Fang Qingshan's mixed etherdermic power, the three mirrors might have broken free if they were caught off guard. In fact, the simplest way was to refine them one by one. That way, the three mirrors would not be able to cause any trouble. However, it was the same now. It was just a little more troublesome. Although the cauldron of heaven and earth shook quite a bit, Fang Qingshan did not care at all. Other than continuously adding dermic power, he closed his eyes and listened attentively. He looked intoxicated and enjoyed it. Why was it said that fighting was the best teacher? Because only in a great battle between life and death would there be great terror. Only then would one go all out and stimulate one's potential. It was the same now. The three mirrors of clear sky, Kunlun, and Samsara had reached a critical moment. At the most dangerous moment, they naturally revealed their most original power. Moreover, because they were of the same origin, they fought against the same enemy at the same time. Under the pressure of the cauldron of heaven and earth, they fused together and became the samsara source again. The vibrating sound might have sounded like noise to others, but to Fang Qingshan, it was the most beautiful sound in the world. It was the sound of the Great Way. At that moment, in the blood sea, in front of the cauldron of heaven and earth, the three mirrors had not completely returned to their original form. They had not even merged with the other treasure. However, Fang Qingshan had already been inspired by the battle between the three mirrors and the cauldron of heaven and earth. His understanding of his samsara laws had improved. The five elements' laws were tumbling, as if they were about to transform into the samsara laws. During his last seclusion, he had refined the reincarnation mirror, the reincarnation law, and the reincarnation flesh. Fang Qingshan's understanding of the reincarnation law had reached a rudimentary level, and the five-elemental law was slowly transforming toward reincarnation. However, this progress was still not fast enough. Now that he had seen and heard the appearance of the samsara source with his own eyes, Fang Qingshan was greatly benefited. It was the same principle as seeing the 24 grades red lotus of fire take shape and the great path green lotus visualization picture being quickly perfected. Chapter 11:15. No one knew how much time had passed. It could have been a moment, a few days, a few months, or even longer. Finally, the three-faced mirror could not resist. There was a whimper, a wail, and a sharp, crisp sound. The three-faced mirror turned into countless fragments, and these fragments continued to soften and shrink. Finally, they completely merged into water and turned into the power of reincarnation. Merge! Seeing this, Fang Qingshan hurriedly took out the Khanate cardinal treasure, the reincarnation mirror. He stretched out his hand, and through the power of origin that had been returned by the cosmic cauldron into the reincarnation mirror. Buzz! After obtaining this power of origin, the reincarnation mirror erupted with shocking brilliance and vibrations. If it were not for the fact that this was the small world of the Blood Sea and Fang Qingshan was suppressing and sealing it, the entire desolation mirror would have been alarmed. Life and death reincarnated, and time flowed. The restrictions in the reincarnation mirror that had been shattered by the great heaven-opening tribulation began to repair at a speed visible to the naked eye and took shape in the light. The pressure seemed to change every second. Although it had not recovered to its peak, the new reincarnation mirror looked as clear as jade and radiated treasure light. Although it might be slightly inferior to the 24 lotus platforms or the 3 treasures of heaven opening, it was surrounded by purple chi and holy light. The auspicious aura was like thousands of silk ribbons hanging down, and the light flowed. A faint transcendent aura was produced. Although it was not very strong, it could be clearly heard. Obviously, this treasure had surpassed the cosmic cauldron and the Godslayer and reached the ranks of the top Khanate cardinal treasures. Just as Feng Qingshan was in seclusion to refine the treasure, another cycle in the desolation mirror began. Just like after the last Dragon Phoenix tribulation, all living things in the world cultivated and recovered, following the rise of the liches and demons. With the end of the great war of liches and demons, the era of the saints began. Everything in the desolation mirror was changing, and all living things in the world began to recuperate and flourish. Of course, the fastest development was naturally the human race, which was once almost exterminated by the demons. The liches retreated in defeat. Apart from those who were taken away by the Western sect and the Jie school, a portion of them followed the Lady of Earth to the Netherworld. A portion of them followed Niuhua to the Imperial Palace of Snail. The rest hid in the North Continent. As for the other races, although they had reappeared, they had only reappeared. Although they had recovered a little, they were still just vassals. However, the human race was different. With the support of the human Tao Providence and the promotion of the saints, the entire East Continent and the South Continent became the world of the human race. Without external interference, the human race developed rapidly and quickly replaced the sorcerer and demon races as the new overlords of the Desolation Continent. As for the other races, it wasn't that they didn't want to fight for the position of the main character of the world. It was because they knew their own limits. Even the sorcerer clan and the demon clan couldn't do it, let alone the other races. Therefore, they turned a blind eye to the development of the humankind. This was also the reason why the humankind developed so quickly. Of course, there was still a long way to go before the human race became the main characters of the desolation of the heavens and earth. After all, the human race was still at the stage where the 3 ancestors were ruling. Even so, the endless providence that erupted from the human race shocked everyone. Although the saints knew that the human race was extraordinary, they didn't expect it to be this extraordinary. As the sect master of the Ren School, and as the goddess of the human race, Niuhua could enjoy a layer of the providence of the human race. Even though the other saints enjoyed less than half of the providence, their cultivation speed increased instantly. Even Junyi, who had a slower cultivation level because he owed Hongjun Tian Dao karma, felt that he had improved by leaps and bounds. If his speed in the past was like an old ox pulling a broken cart, then even if he wasn't a galloping horse now, his speed had increased by at least 3 to 5 times. Under such circumstances, controlling and educating the human race naturally became the main task of the saints. To the saints, the most important things were cultivation level and reputation. Providence was undoubtedly the best and fastest way to increase one's cultivation level. On the other hand, educating the human race would naturally give one great providence. Back then, Hongjun was taught by the Purple Cloud Palace, educated all living beings, and gathered the providence of heaven and earth. That was how he advanced by leaps and bounds and reached the Tao integration in one fell swoop. Among them, the first to take action and think of a suitable solution was naturally Laozi. He was the sect master of the Ren School. The significance of establishing a sect in the name of a human was obvious. It was unknown if it was because he remembered that the Dragon Emperor of the Dragon Race and the Demon the Arch of the Demon Race, or if he had a flash of inspiration, or if it was a hint from the heavens. Anyway, Laozi thought of a way to quickly develop and strengthen the human race. As the saying goes, a family can't be without a master, and a country can't be without a ruler. If he wanted to develop quickly, he had to have a core leader and centralized power. That was because that was the only way he could put in the same effort and think in the same direction. Only then could he maximize the efficiency of all his power. However, at the same time, Laozi also thought of another problem. He could not let his guard down when he established the human emperor. Even after Nuwa became a saint, most of the demons only knew about Dijun and did not know about Nuwa. After Dijun's death, most of the demons would rather join the Western sect and Jie school. They would even hide in a barren land like the North Continent rather than join Nuwa. How sad. In order not to shoot himself in the foot, in order to prevent any accidents from happening to the human race controlled by the saint. Therefore, Laozi thought of a solution. He still had to establish the human emperor. However, he would not establish one. Instead, he would establish 8. The goal was naturally self-evident. The 3 sovereigns and 5 emperors. The 3 sovereigns represented heaven, earth, and man. The 5 emperors represented the 5 elements of metal, wood, water, fire, and earth. That way, not only could he achieve the goal of educating the human race and obtain supreme enlightenment and merit, but he would also not be in a situation where he only knew about the human emperor but not the saint. If such a situation happened, he would really hate himself for being pressured by the golden thread every year and working for others. Fortunately, Laozi had an idea. Otherwise, such a situation might really happen. After all, when the 3 sovereigns and 5 emperors proved their Tao, the weakest person could reach the late stage of the sage-to-be with merit. Among the 3 sovereigns, Yu the Great had reached the peak of the sage-to-be and was not weaker than Jin Yuanzi and the others. If one had the human Tao luck, it would not be a problem to wrestle with a saint. If all the luck and merit were concentrated on one person, even without the primordial violet Qi, it might be possible for him to prove his Tao and become a human Tao saint like Hutu. As long as it was in line with the general trend of Hongjun Tian Tao, the sage's heart would move and the heaven's heart would move. Just as the thought of the 3 sovereigns and 5 emperors rose in Laozi's mind, the heavenly secrets changed and the karma rank of the 3 sovereigns and 5 emperors condensed. However, although Laozi was the sect master of Ren School and wanted to establish the 3 sovereigns and 5 emperors, he was not the only one who had the final say. It was fine for the others, but Nuwa was someone he could not avoid no matter what. When he established the Ren School, he did not inform her and had already formed karma. This time, things would probably be difficult to handle. A slight move would affect everything. Just as Laozi was thinking about how to unite with Nuwa and establish the human race, Nuwa also found out about the 3 sovereigns and 5 emperors immediately. Chapter 11:16. As the holy mother of the human race, Nuwa was naturally closely related to the human race. As long as no one deliberately concealed the heavenly secrets and blinded her senses, she would be the first to know about any major events of the human race. Naturally, she would be the first to know about the birth of the 3 sovereigns and 5 emperors, who would lead the human race to rise and become the main characters of the world. Almost at the same time, Nuwa thought of her brother, Fushi. Nuwa felt guilty about Fushi. In the past, as her brother, Fushi had done his best to protect her and left the best things for her, including the sainthood and the Hongmeng immortal Qi. As for her, she had wasted half of her life. In the end, if she had not used the Mountain River map to protect Fushi's spirit during the Great Sorcerer and Demon War, Fushi would have vanished like Dijuntai. Even so, Fushi would not have been able to achieve much with only his spirit. Therefore, she wanted to make it up to him. There was nothing much to say about the Great Sorcerer and Demon War. Now that Fushi had escaped, even if she could not help him become a saint, he wanted to be a free and unfettered immortal. Therefore, Nuwa had been waiting for an opportunity. Once the matter of the 3 sovereigns and 5 emperors was settled, Nuwa immediately thought of planning for her brother to become the heavenly sovereign. The rise of the human race was inevitable, and the providence was strong. She could tell a thing or two from her recent cultivation. As the main characters of the world, the human race had the support of all the saints. If there were no accidents, it would not change. If Fushi could join the human race and become a heavenly sovereign, he would have the providence and merit. Even if he did not break through to the origin realm, it would not be a problem for him to recover his original cultivation. Moreover, the human sovereign was a human Tao karma rank not inferior to the saints. Coupled with the human race's merit and providence, it could be said that as long as the human race was not destroyed, the human sovereign would not die. Apart from a difference in power, he was no different from the saints. Even if the saints wanted to deal with the 3 sovereigns and 5 emperors, they would be extremely cautious. At most, they would suppress and detain them. They would not even dare to cause too much harm, let alone kill them. Wasn't this the case in the original trajectory? The 3 sovereigns and 5 emperors were highly respected. The saints were afraid that they would affect their control over the human race, so they could not easily show themselves. Actions speak louder than words. Laozi and Nuwa were people who had already enjoyed the blessing of luck and the rapid increase in their cultivation speed. Their hearts were not satisfied, so they naturally hoped for more. Therefore, the 2 of them quickly arranged to meet. Greetings, junior sister Nuwa. Greetings, eldest senior brother. After the 2 of them greeted each other, they did not beat around the bush and went straight to the point. When the human race prospers, the 3 sovereigns and 5 emperors will rule. The head of the 3 sovereigns, the position of heavenly sovereign, my elder brother, Fushi, is qualified. Laozi needed Nuwa's support to establish the 3 sovereigns and 5 monarchs, while Nuwa also needed the Fushi heavenly monarch's throne. Both of them had their own goals, and it was a perfect match. 1,000 cups are too little when drinking with a bosom friend, but half a sentence is too much when the conversation is not congenial. With just a few words, Laozi and Nuwa came to an agreement. Soon after, a new problem arose. The Fushi celestial race was the monster race, and back then, the monster race slaughtered the humans. Therefore, if the Fushi wanted to become the Renhuang, he had to reincarnate and shed his monster body. Otherwise, not to mention the human race, even Laozi and the others would not agree to it. After all, if the Fushi wanted to replace the tree with the flower, they would not even have a place to cry. However, if the Fushi wanted to reincarnate, he had to make a trip to the Samsara, which was the base camp of Hutu. Just like how the human race could not avoid Nuwa if they wanted to establish the 3 sovereigns and 5 emperors, it was impossible for the Fushi to hide from Hutu if he wanted to reincarnate. The most important thing was that the sorcerer and the demon race could not coexist. Nuwa believed that if it were her, she would definitely not agree. Even if she agreed, she would do something behind the scenes. The Samsara was a mysterious power in the world. Other than Hutu and Hongjun Tiandao, even the sages could not fathom it. If Hutu was up to no good, she could just curl her finger and ruin their plans. What do we do now? Nuwa asked indignantly. There will always be a way out. It's useless for us to speculate here. Why don't we go to the netherworld and talk to her face to face? Maybe there will be a turn for the better. Laozi did not have any good ideas now. He could only take it one step at a time. Laozi and Nuwa brought the Fushi's primordial spirit and soon arrived at the gate of hell in the netherworld. I, Nuwa, have taken the liberty to visit. Saint Hutu, please meet me. Laozi's voice was not loud, but it was endless. It spread out like a wave and echoed in the entire netherworld. In a palace beside the 6 paths of reincarnation, a compassionate woman who looked very similar to Hutu slowly opened her eyes. Why are they here? This person was none other than the good corpse incarnation of Hutu, Pingshin. As for her main body, she was not in the netherworld at the moment. Instead, she was in the Pangu Hall in the North Continent. During the great tribulation of the journey to the west, all the demons with backers were sent away. Those without backers died in the end. It was the same for the great Magi Demon War. Fushi had Nuwa's backing. Therefore, he survived and retained his primordial spirit. The 12 ancestors of sorcery should have fallen together with Diju and Tai. However, this time, the Lady of Earth had become a saint. Therefore, they had a backer. Therefore, before the great battle, when nurturing Ho-E, the 12 Zuwu had each left behind a wisp of his mind and effort. It was just like the Fushi's primordial spirit that was protected by Nuwa. At this moment, Hutu was in the Pangu Hall. Using the great power of the Pangu Hall, the foundation of the Wu people, and her cultivation, she helped the 12 Zuwu to recover as soon as possible. If Hutu was in the netherworld, she would not have paid attention to Laozi and Yua's request. She would have directly shut the two of them out. However, Pingxin was kind. Although she and Hutu were two sides of the same person, she had inherited the great mercy of her incarnation of reincarnation. Although she knew that Laozi, Yua, and the Wu people were not on good terms, she could not shut them out. Two Taoists have come from afar. Please come in. As soon as Pingxin finished speaking, the gates of hell opened. The six paths of reincarnation shot out a black and white light that appeared under their feet. Yua and Laozi looked at each other and stepped on it. In a moment, they saw a woman who was no different from Hutu looking at them apart from her temperament. Greetings, Taoist Pingxin. I, Yua, greet Taoist Pingxin. They greeted each other and exchanged pleasantries. There was really nothing else to talk about. Laozi had no choice but to reveal the purpose of his visit to the netherworld. Taoist, Yua, and I, Taoist Pingxin, are here for the desolation of all living beings. The first time I saw Ping Xian, I already had a plan in my heart. I haven't even said what I want, but I've already put a big hat on him. He wanted to gain the upper hand by making a show of strength and arouse the righteousness and compassion in Pingxin's heart so that he could gain the upper hand in the subsequent negotiations. Chapter 11:17. Winking at the blind. This daddy's actions were obviously in vain. After all, although Pingxin was kind and compassionate, she was not stupid, nor was she a White Lotus Virgin Mary. Although she was the good corpse of Hutu and had inherited her kindness, she still had the unique decisiveness of the Wu people. Most importantly, she had a standpoint. She was also Hutu and represented the Wu people. Small conflicts and small favors were nothing. But when it came to matters of interest, even if Laozi was eloquent, it was just a waste of time. Although there was a smile on her face, it was just on the surface. She did not speak, but just listened to Laozi quietly. The human tribe is flourishing and is the protagonist of the world. 3 sovereigns and 5 emperors are born. Taoist Fuxi wants to reincarnate the human tribe and become the human emperor through samsara. Seeing that Pingxin was so stubborn, Laozi had no choice but to tell her his purpose in full detail. Oh, I was wondering why they came together. So it's for this. Pingxin was suddenly enlightened. She knew what Laozi and Yua were worried about. Samsara was her private land after all. If Fuxi wanted to reincarnate the human tribe, he had to go through samsara. If it was someone else, it would be fine. But Fuxi was not only a monster, but also a peak sage to be. How could such a strong, primordial spirit escape her eyes? If Laozi did something, they would have no place to cry. 3 sovereigns and 5 emperors. Heavenly sovereign Fuxi. At the same time, Pingxin's mind was spinning crazily. If the monster race and Fuxi's celestial race can intervene, then wouldn't the shaman race be able to recover even faster? Did Taoists forget that the great war of liches and demons just ended? Liches and demons are enemies. Although her heart was in turmoil, she looked calm on the surface. She did not care about life and death. She just asked calmly, "Although the human emperor is important, I don't believe it has to be someone. What do you think?" Pingxin actually had other plans in mind. But in order to take the initiative, she still pointed out the crux of the problem. Although Nviwa had expected this scene, she was still infuriated when she heard Ping Xian's words. If she didn't know that she was no match for Ping Xian and that she needed help from Ping Xian, she would have fallen out with her on the spot. What about me? He was also embarrassed and helpless. He knew this would happen. Of course, he did not forget that the great sorcerer and demon war had just ended. The sorcerer and demon war were mortal enemies. Many of the sorcerer race had died at the hands of Fuxi, including many ancestral sorcerers. As for what Zhongyu said, did the human sovereign have to be a Fuxi? Indeed, it was possible to not be a Fuxi. Shino, Xianyuan, Yu the Great, and the others were all pure humans. As long as they were human beings, as long as they could play a strong role in promoting the development of the humankind, anyone could be promoted. It was just that he wanted to make a deal with Yua so that she would support him. That was why it had to be a Fuxi. I wonder what conditions Her Highness has to agree to this humble Taoist request. Laozi took a deep breath and went straight to the point. All the hustle and bustle in the world is for profit, and all the hustle and bustle in the world is for profit. The lich has already become a thing of the past. I don't believe that Wu people will be stubborn to the end. Sure enough, when Ping Xian heard this, she didn't bother to talk about it anymore and directly stated her own conditions. Since the demon race is going to have a human sovereign, how can I, Wu people, fall behind? That's impossible. Before Laozi could say anything, Nuo flatly refuted. Fuxi is my elder brother, and I am the goddess of the human race. Of course, I have the qualifications. What qualifications do you Wu people have? Moreover, without a primordial spirit, how can you reincarnate? Fuxi is indeed your elder brother, but he is also an executioner who slaughters humans. If he has the qualifications, there's no need to mention me, Wu people. After all, Wu people, don't have much karma with the human race, and I have even helped the human race in the past. Even now, there is still a bloodline of the human race that flows in the bloodline of the Wu people. Ping Xian said unhurriedly. As for the primordial spirit, who says that Wu people, don't have a primordial spirit? Isn't Ho-E, a living example? How about it? After a pause, Ping Xian continued. If the two Taoists agree, everyone will be happy. If not, go back to where you came from. Of course, if the two of you want to wrestle with me, you are welcome to do so at any time. I can give the Wu people a qualification, but whether or not they can ascend to the position of the human sovereign will depend on their fate. In the end, Laozi compromised. However, he also said that it was just a qualification, and the final outcome would depend on their own means. All right, seeing this, Ping Xian did not insist that the Wu people must become the human sovereign. He believed that with the strength of the Wu people, as long as they had the qualification, everything else would come naturally. Although the great sorcerer and demon war had greatly damaged the strength of the Wu people, as long as the main body was around, everything would not be a problem. Moreover, the other 11 brothers and sisters were also recovering rapidly. If there were any changes, they might give the others a big surprise. Just as Laozi and the others were discussing the establishment of the 3 sovereigns and 5 emperors in the nearby Blood Sea, the clone of the World Tree finally completely integrated with the World Tree and began to break through to the Origin Realm. In the small world of the Blood Sea, the clone of the World Tree directly revealed its real body, which was indomitable. It was like Mount Bujo in the past and today's Optimus Prime. Its head could not be seen, and its roots could not be seen. Its trunk was as straight as a dragon, and its branches were luxuriant, covering the sun and the sky. At first glance, those who did not know better would think that they were looking at the chaotic spiritual root. Its whole body emitted a seemingly substantial coercion. Although this coercion had not broken through to the Origin Realm, it seemed to be no weaker than the coercion of Zhuanti and the others after they became saints. Moreover, it was purer, more ancient, vast, and noble. Faintly, the clone of the World Tree looked inside itself and could see that the bottleneck between the Sage-to-Be and the Origin Realm, which was originally like a natural moat, had already been built with a glorious purple-gold bridge. It had continuously integrated the millions of origin power that it had collected during its travels and desolation, in addition to the various origin seeds that Fang Qingshan had intercepted from Pan Gu's secret vault. And most importantly, it had integrated with the World Tree's origin to make up for its own shortcomings. Now, the clone of the World Tree had gradually reached the perfect and flawless realm, and the next step was to break through to the next realm. Although the bottleneck of the World Tree to break through to the Origin Realm was no longer there, if it wanted to break through to the Origin Realm, it first needed to devour all the great ways, nurture the World Tao, and then use the World Tao to create a new world in its body. All the great ways, return to me. At a certain moment, the clone of the World Tree opened its mouth slightly and let out a soft roar, which sounded like a lion's roar in thunder. Buzz! The next moment, a magnificent nomological origin emerged from the body of the World Tree. It was the world origin power that belonged to the World Tree itself. This World Tree's origin was in the shape of a seed, and it was still a little illusory. Even so, its entire body was a kind of glazed green, and there were ancient patterns on it that were changing as if it had spirituality. In a trance, Feng Qingshan seemed to see the everlasting lotus seed from back then. Chapter 11:18. The origin seed was the essence of the world tree and the fundamental reason why it could walk the world Tao. It was extremely magical. From time to time, it emitted bursts of brilliance. In the seed, one could seemingly see the birth and death of the world, the changes of heaven and earth, and the vicissitudes of time. Then, the thousands of great Tao in the world inside the clone of the world tree began to peel off and gather toward the origin seed of the world tree. First, the golden crow fell from the west. The grand sun nomological laws turned into origin power and entered the origin seed. There was no barrier because they came from the same source. There was no obstruction and everything was absorbed. After a long drought, the origin seed was like a thirsty person in the desert who had finally found a water source. It let out an excited, happy, and emotional groan. The moon nomological laws, the stars nomological laws, wind, rain, thunder, lightning, the four seasons, birds, beasts, insects, fish, flowers, trees, as more and more nomological laws entered the origin seed. The origin seed became more and more solid. It was green and emitted a dazzling brilliance. It was as heavy as a real world. At the same time, the original world inside the world tree naturally began to collapse as these nomological laws were peeled off. The world was destroyed, and all existence was destroyed and turned into nothingness. Of course, this was also very dangerous because that world was originally the manifestation of the Tao fruit of the world tree clone. Once it completely collapsed and the new world was not formed, it would really be over. Obviously, such a breakthrough was like putting oneself in a dead end. If one did not succeed, one would die. This was also why very few people walk the world Tao and walk the world Tao, because every major breakthrough was equivalent to experiencing a life or death tribulation. Just like now, the world tree had broken through to the primordial chaos realm. Not only did it have to first collapse the world and use the world to nurture the world Tao, but after this step was successful, it had to use the world Tao to create a new world. The collapse of the world was extreme destruction and extremely dangerous. The same was true for creating a new world. Even Pan Gu did not make it to the end. The desolation Hongjun Tiandao had also taken this path. However, compared to the world tree breaking through from the demi-saint realm to the primordial chaos realm, Hongjun Tiandao needed to break through from the heavenly decay realm to the immortal realm, which was more difficult. The world tree clone had only destroyed a major kiliocosm, and the new one was only a newly formed desolation world. What Hongjun Tiandao wanted to destroy was the desolation world at its peak. The chaos world that was formed was even more advanced than the desolation world. In order to delay the arrival of the immeasurable cataclysm, Hongjun Tiandao created the cataclysm. Beasts, dragons, phoenixes, Taoists, demons, gods on one hand, it was to get rid of Pan Gu's traces so that Hongjun Tiandao could control the world perfectly. On the other hand, it could also weaken tribulations. Desolation after the great war of the liches and demons was much smaller than before. The world was small, and the power of origin was hidden by Hongjun Tiandao. Under such circumstances, the success rate would naturally increase greatly. Of course, good fortune is accompanied by misfortune, and misfortune is accompanied by good fortune. Although the world Tao was very dangerous, the gains after the breakthrough were considerable. This was because once the breakthrough was made, even if one was only at the first stage primordial chaos realm, it was enough to crush other first stage primordial chaos realm, even second stage primordial chaos realm, and third stage primordial chaos realm. This was no longer an ordinary invincible realm. It was not the first stage or second stage primordial chaos realm, but the early stage and mid-stage primordial chaos realm. It would not be a problem for the powerful ones to challenge those at a higher level. Of course, In order to reach this step, one had to first pass the current hurdle. Fortunately, the world tree was only trying to break through to primordial chaos. For this day, both Fangqing Shan and the world tree clone had made a lot of preparations. Therefore, it was more daunting than dangerous. Light and darkness, hot and cold, black and white, life and death, reincarnation, karma, fate, time, space, as all the great Tao was integrated into the origin seed. The world Tao became more and more perfect. In an instant, there seemed to be the sound of a golden bell. It was like thunder, the roar of a dragon, and the galloping of thousands of horses above the 9 heavens. If it were not for the fact that they were in the small world of the Sea of Blood, and that Fong Qingshan and Mosquito Dowrin had not covered up the tremors, the entire desolation would have been alarmed. In an instant, endless purple chi emerged from the origin seed. It was more than 300,000 feet long. It was strange and mysterious, containing connate creation. It was the most noble. When heaven and earth are opened, the world is formed. Extreme yin gave birth to yang. Extreme yang gave birth to yin. Extreme hardness gave birth to softness. Extreme softness gave birth to hardness. When one thing reached its limit, it would transform into something else. It could be a blessing in disguise, or it could be a blessing in disguise. There was a great opportunity in great terror, and there was naturally a great creation in great destruction. After the world was destroyed to the extreme, it would use the origin seed to create a new world. It would obtain new life in destruction. Boom! A loud sound shook the heavens and the earth. Of course, the outside world could not hear it. However, the minds of the world tree clone, Mosquito Dowrin, and Fangqing Shan went blank, and they temporarily fell into a state of nothingness. Even the trunk of the world tree was shaken violently by the impact. When they came back to their senses, they saw the origin seed explode, and the world Tao evolved. The chaos was destroyed, and clear and turbid black and white chi appeared. The black was turbid chi, condensed into evil chi, and the earth chi sank. The white was clear chi, floating into the clouds, and the earth chi rose. The sinking turbid chi continued to evolve. The earth lung, earth fire, earth fiend, and earth veins were constantly perfected, turning into a piece of land. The rising clear chi was the same, but it evolved in a thunder, fire, astral wind, the 9 heavens, the Zodiac star, the 33 heavens, and the world barrier. The Tao begets 1, 1 begets 2, 2 begets 3, and 3 begets all things. The primordial chaos became 1. The primordial chaos gave birth to Wuji. Wuji gave birth to Tai Chi. Tai Chi transformed into Yin and Yang. Yin and Yang formed the 4 symbols, and the 4 symbols followed the 8 trigrams. There were also the 3 talents, 5 elements, 6 directions, 7 stars, 9 palaces, and 10 extremes, heavenly stems and earthly branches, heavenly spirits and earthly fiends, as well as the Zodiac star. Even wind, rain, thunder, lightning, floods, tornadoes, karma, wishes, marriage, fate, Buddhism, Taoism, Confucianism, demon, shaman, as countless auras continued to spread, the earth and the sky continued to expand and extend, becoming more and more vast, colorful, and sturdy. In the sky, the sun and moon were in the sky, and the stars were bright. There was light, heat, clouds, wind, rain, thunder, and lightning. On the earth, pieces of land rose up, turning into mountains and hills. Pieces of land sank and cracked, turning into ravines, basins, and canyons. Rain fell from the sky, or underground rivers emerged, flowing, turning into rivers, lakes, and all rivers returning to the sea. Metal gave birth to water, water gave birth to wood, wood gave birth to fire, fire gave birth to earth, and earth gave birth to metal. The 5 elements circulated, and with water, plants naturally grew, lush and lush. In an instant, spring filled the earth. Of course, the most important thing in a world was living beings. Only with intelligent living beings and spirituality could this world be considered to be alive. Otherwise, No matter how good it would still be dead silent. Heaven and earth. World. Just like that, a primordial world condensed and appeared. Chapter 11:19. The Desolation World. Although it was not as good as the Desolation World created by Pangu, Feng Qingshan was currently in. However, it also crossed the boundary of the vast thousand worlds. The minor chiliocosms were as numerous as the sand grains in the Ganges River, and the sky was full of stars. It was impossible to count their number. The same was true for the medium-class worlds. Only when one reached the vast thousand worlds could they be marked on the star map. Even so, they were just like cities on the map. The myriad worlds did not refer to the vast thousand worlds. The weakest was also the desolation world. Moreover, such a desolation world was not like the desolation world that the world tree had just created. Even if it was not as good as the desolation world created by Pangu, it was not much different. At the very least, it had the foundation to advance to the chaotic world. Therefore, although the world created by the world tree seemed to be inferior to those great worlds in the heavens, it was actually very valuable. This was because a top primordial spiritual treasure like the stately painting could only give birth to a vast thousand world. Many primordial treasures might not be able to give birth to a desolation world. Such a world had such a deep foundation. Although it was dangerous to create, if one was not careful, not only would years of hard work be wasted, but they might even die directly working for others. However, once it was successful, the benefits were naturally great. When the world was successfully created, there would be an infinite amount of purple chi. Of course, this was not the strange phenomenon of a sage traveling, nor was it the primordial purple chi, which was the foundation to become a sage. It was the primordial purple chi. Purple chi was expensive. Although it was only the primordial purple chi, it was not inferior to the chi of heaven and earth at all. It was rare, and was the condensation of the power of heaven and earth. Each strand was like a dragon or a snake, incomparably pure. It was the most precious treasure in the creation of a world. If it could be used well, it might be able to take a step further. It should be known that this was the desolation world, the feedback of forming the world. It was even possible to help people become sages. It was a pity that Pangu's injuries were too severe. Even if he opened up a world like desolation, the feedback power could not stop his loss. Moreover, he did not manage to wait until his body turned into all living things. In the end, Hongjun Tiandao took advantage of it. Of course, not just anyone could make use of such a great fortune. At this moment, it was time to test a person's fundamental cultivation method. Although it wasn't that ordinary cultivation methods couldn't be used, the efficiency of using them was frighteningly low. If he did that, it would undoubtedly be a reckless waste of God's gifts. Not to mention being struck by lightning. Even he himself wouldn't be able to forgive himself. Thankfully, Feng Qingshan had made use of the eternal blessings to create his own great Tao cultivation method. Moreover, he was constantly perfecting it, and its grade was high enough. While he could not make full use of it, he could still do his best to get the most out of it. Great Tao Green Lotus Visualization Diagram. As soon as Feng Qingshan thought about it, a mystical visualization diagram appeared in his mind. In the visualization diagram, there was a heaven lotus shimmering with green light. It exuded a strong, eternal great path. Waves of pure power of the great path flowed around it. It was as if one could see the everlasting lotus on it. The flower bloomed 28 times. Although there were still some lotus seeds that had yet to solidify, it was much better than it was at the beginning. As soon as this lotus appeared, all the connate purple chi was like birds returning to the forest. The power continuously gathered towards this great Tao green lotus that had traces of eternal great path. After merging with it, the great Tao green lotus naturally condensed it into a mortal substance. This connate purple chi was indeed the supreme fortune that was born at the beginning of the desolation. Compared to Feng Qingshan's mixed primordial powers, it was not only pure, but its grade was also incomparable. Not only was the speed of transformation faster, but the difficulty of transformation was also lower. Naturally, the efficiency of condensation was higher. In the past, it might have taken 100 units of magic to condense 1 unit of immortal substance. Now, it only took a dozen units or dozens of units of connate purple chi to condense 1 unit of immortal substance. Nobody knew how much time had passed. At some point, all the connate purple chi in the world had been completely transformed into immortal substance by the great Tao Green Lotus. Now, Fang Qingshan's immortal substance had finally caught up to his own cultivation level. Although his cultivation level did not increase, his foundation was more solid. Even his combat ability had increased correspondingly. If Fang Qingshan could condense 10 levels of immortal substance to go through heavenly decay, there would be no accidents, but there would be a 90% chance of success. This kind of fortune should have been enjoyed by the clone of the World Tree. It was just that it would be difficult for him to walk through the world path on his own. Therefore, he needed to make use of resources reasonably. Plus, in the end, the main body was the only one. Also, the creation of the world wasn't just a fortune like the connate purple chi. Didn't you see that the biggest fortune that Pangu left behind when he opened the sky, apart from the 3 treasures of opening the sky, was the infinite merit? Rumble. Just as Fang Qingshan finished digesting the connate purple chi, an endless amount of merit energy suddenly gathered in the sky. Immortal sounds rang out, conches were blown, and drums were beaten. Countless mysteries were fused within, intertwining and colliding. The heavenly sound of the great Tao was vast. No one could clearly hear what it was chanting, but they could tell that it contained astonishing mysteries. Great Tao merit. Yes, right now, the great Tao merit that was gathering in the sky was the same as the primordial sky measuring ruler. It wasn't like the Hongjun Tiandao merit that Nuwa had obtained by creating humans and mending the heavens. Of course, in addition to the great Tao merit and Hongjun Tiandao merit, there was also the human Tao merit. Although they were all merit, the difference was obvious. This was like spiritual energy. Chaotic spiritual energy, connate spiritual energy, and acquired spiritual energy could not be lumped together. The great Tao merit was the merit that came from doing things that were beneficial to the great Tao, such as opening up the desolation world. The Hongjun Tiandao merit was the merit that came from doing things that were beneficial to the Hongjun Tiandao world, such as creating humans and mending the heavens. The human Tao merit was the same. For example, Swirenshi and the others, and the 3 sovereigns and 5 emperors who were about to be born. What they obtained was the human Tao merit. Generally speaking, the effects were about the same, and they were all universal existences. They could resist mental demons, be invulnerable, and not be tainted by karma. They could be used to heal injuries, refine treasures, and improve cultivation. But in reality, the great Tao merit was the most fundamental difference between the Hongjun Tiandao merit and the human Tao merit. That was, the great Tao merit was bestowed by the great Tao. In the world enveloped by the great Tao, the great Tao merit was effective. But what about the Hongjun Tiandao merit and the human Tao merit? They could only be effective in the world they were in. For example, the heaven and earth cauldron in Fang Qingshan's hands had absorbed several merit and could be considered a connate merit treasure. But once it left the desolation world, although its grade would not change, the additional effects of killing people without karma would be stripped away. Chapter 11:20. Heaven and Earth Mysterious Yellow, Universe Desolation. Heaven and Earth Mysterious Yellow Chi accompanied the descent of Heaven and Earth Mysterious Yellow Chi. This Chi was extraordinary. It was probably not inferior to the connate purple Chi that Fang Qingshan had devoured previously. His accompanying numinous treasure, the Heaven and Earth Mysterious Yellow Exquisite Pagoda, was formed by combining this Heaven and Earth Mysterious Yellow Chi with the Heaven Opening Merit. Standing on top of his head, it was invincible. Of course, although the inner world opened by the World Tree had reached the level of desolation, it obviously could not be compared to the world opened by Pangu. Therefore, the amount of Heaven and Earth Mysterious Yellow Chi obtained could not be mentioned in the same breath. It was roughly equivalent to about 3 levels of Pan Gu's heaven-opening merit. Even so, it was enough. Sanqing had 1 level each and only 3 levels. Relying on these 3 levels of heaven-opening merit, the 3 of them had all become saints. Wu people even only had 2 levels. However, relying on these 2 levels of heaven-opening merit, Wu people had almost become the protagonist of heaven and earth. The mysterious yellow pagoda was a supreme treasure formed by the heaven-opening merit and the mysterious yellow qi of heaven and earth. Although it was acquired, it was not weaker than the innate. Its defense was not weaker than the Tai Chi painting and the Chaos Bell, the 3 treasures of heaven opening. Therefore, these 3 levels of heaven opening merit and heaven and earth qi were already quite a lot. The question Fang Qingshan needed to consider now was whether these merit should be used to improve his cultivation level or to refine a supreme treasure. The qi of merit should be used to improve my cultivation level. As for the heaven and earth qi, it is most suitable to be melted into other supreme treasures instead of condensing them. Fang Qingshan weighed the pros and cons and made a decision in his heart. Whether it was backing numinous treasures, divine powers, or blessed grotto heavens, all of these were just external things. In the end, cultivation was still fundamental. In particular, although the World Tree clone had broken through to the primordial chaos realm, it had only just broken through. Fang Qingshan and Mosquito Dowren were about to break through to the mid-stage primordial chaos realm and reach the late-stage primordial chaos realm. The gap between the two was still very big. In addition, the World Tree clone walked the World Tao. Although this great Tao was tailor-made for him and was easier to cultivate than other living beings, it was still much slower. If he were to rely on himself to cultivate, he would have to spend a lot more time and energy. Most importantly, Fang Qingshan didn't lack precious treasures. The timeless arc, the all-heavens chessboard, the 24 grades red lotus of karmic fire, the bell of chaos, the cauldron of heaven and earth, the heaven-measuring ruler of primordial chaos, the flags of 5 elements. There was no need to even mention those top-grade connate spirit treasures. Of course, that was because even if 3 levels of merit of creation and heaven and earth energy were combined, it would at most form a top-rate artificial merit treasure, and it wouldn't be able to break through the limit. If Fang Qingshan could break through the limit of a chaos spiritual artifact, he would not hesitate to do so. Of course, using merit to directly increase his cultivation level was the stupidest way. Although merit could help people directly increase their cultivation level, that kind of sudden increase in power was not obtained through hard work. Although there was no situation where the foundation was unstable, it was definitely not a good thing. It still gave people the feeling that it was like a castle in the air, a flower in the mirror, or the moon in the water. The best way to use merit to increase one's cultivation level was naturally to use merit to improve one's comprehension ability, or to use Fang Qingshan's merit to assist one's cultivation. Only in this way could he make the best use of it, consolidate his foundation, and strengthen his own foundation. Buzz. Under the guidance of the World Tree, the auspicious clouds of merit quickly gathered above his head and poured down. In an instant, his entire body was submerged in it. For a moment, the World Tree clone could not help but let out a happy moan. Although the World Tree clone had opened up the desolation world with the World Tao, other than a limited number of laws, such as the 5 elements and devouring, the other laws were imperfect. Although the good laws, such as massacre, blood, sword, stars, and so on were not perfect, they had been cultivated to a certain level. However, most of the laws were just seeds that had not even sprouted. These seeds were naturally the other numinous treasures that Fang Qingshan and the World Tree clone had extracted. The origin power of the spirit root had been integrated into the World Tao. What the World Tree clone had to do now was use merit to improve his comprehension ability and assist him in cultivating these laws. The cultivation of the World Tree clone was somewhat different from the cultivation of the main body. The cultivation of the main body was to perfect the laws and condense immortal matter. The World Tree clone still cultivated the world. The more perfect the world was, the higher his cultivation level would be. One layer of great Tao merit could allow Sanqing to easily break through to primordial chaos and continue to help them widen the gap between them and others in the early stages. Now that the World Tree clone enjoyed 3 layers of heaven-opening merit, the outcome was obvious. Although his cultivation level did not rise, the cultivation that he had just broken through was instantly consolidated. Most importantly, a large number of nomological seeds took root and sprouted like bamboo shoots after the rain. In this way, the world was naturally perfected and the cultivation level of the World Tree clone also rose. However, the World Tao was indeed the most difficult Tao to cultivate. If Fang Qingshan devoured 3 layers of heaven-opening merit, he might be able to break through to the mid-stage primordial chaos and reach the 7th-stage primordial chaos. However, after the World Tree clone completely digested it, he had only just broken through to the 3rd-stage primordial chaos. Of course, given his combat power, he would not be at a disadvantage even if he fought with Fang Qingshan. While the World Tree clone was using merit to improve his cultivation level, Fang Qingshan was naturally not idle. He was using the heaven and earth qi to improve the foundation of the cardinal treasures. Fang Qingshan had many precious treasures in his hands, but the most important one was naturally the timeless Arkansas below it with a chaos bell, the 24th grade karmic fire red lotus, and the reincarnation mirror. After them were the heaven chessboard, the cosmic cauldron, and the primordial sky measuring ruler. The weakest was the 5-element flags, which had broken through to become a connate cardinal treasure first. The importance of the timeless arc was self-evident. It was Fang Qingshan's strongest trump card, both in terms of combat power and cultivation assistance. In order to lay the foundation for the timeless arc to break through to the supremacy level, Fang Qingshan directly divided half of the heaven and earth qi and integrated it into the timeless arc's body to improve its strength. As for the remaining half of the heaven and earth qi, Fang Qingshan divided it into 2 and integrated it into the 24 grade, 1 Hellfire Red Lotus and the Reincarnation Mirror respectively. Firstly, it was naturally because of the deep foundation of the Reincarnation Mirror and the 24 grade, 1 Hellfire Red Lotus. Secondly, the Reincarnation Mirror was related to his cultivation of the Reincarnation Law. If the 24 grade, 1 Hellfire Red Lotus advanced, it would also correspondingly improve his primordial chaos cultivation technique, the Great Tao Green Lotus visualization image. As for the other few cardinal treasures, Fang Qingshan could only apologize. After all, there were only so many things, and good steel should be used on the blade's edge. With the integration of the heaven and earth qi, although the 3 precious treasures did not break through the shackles, it deepened their foundation and naturally made it easier to break through in the future. Chapter 1121. While Fang Qingshan was in seclusion and the World Tree was breaking through, under Laozi's push, the 3 sovereigns and 5 emperors plan was finally unimpeded. Because of Fuxi, Niwa could quickly become the main character of the world if the 3 sovereigns and 5 emperors were born. This was also very beneficial to her. As for primordial Tongtian, because Laozi had promised them that apart from planning one for Great Master Xiandu, he would give a rest to them so that they could have share. Hudu wanted the Wu people to get a ticket and let the Wu people return to the stage of history. He wanted to use the luck of the human race to restore the Wu people. Therefore, none of them would interfere and would only add fuel to the fire. As for the rest, Zhuni was restrained by Sanqing in the west and couldn't do anything. Moreover, they didn't dare to go against the trend of the 3 sovereigns and 5 emperors. When the Tao weakened, the demons grew. Although the sky of demons had merged with the desolation, the celestial sect was prospering. Obviously, this wasn't the best time for Ro to stir up trouble. However, if the human race thrived, the demonic path would also prosper. After all, demons were different from demons, Buddhists, and Taoists. They weren't like the demons, who didn't have a blood feud with the human race. They weren't like the Buddhists, who didn't require talent or enlightenment. Most importantly, They could improve by leaps and bounds in the early stages. Although they knew that foundation was important, for those with poor talent and temperament, 10,000 years was too long. They had to seize every minute. Therefore, the demonic path was also very popular among the human race. Especially after the demons slaughtered humans, the human race, who desperately needed power, had already deeply rooted the seeds of the demonic path in the human race. Therefore, Ro wouldn't cause trouble. Fang Qingshan was guarding the World Tree clone and studying the World Tao to improve himself. He had no time to care about anything else. Moreover, desolation was too small for him. He had already made up his mind to leave desolation. Therefore, he would not cause any trouble. Moreover, the birth of the 3 sovereigns and 5 emperors was also an opportunity for Fang Qingshan. Other than healing his injuries, Yang Mei could completely ignore his existence as long as he didn't provoke him. Desolation was the desolation of Hongjun Tiandao. It was the desolation of Saint Primordial Chaos. Especially after the Lich, there was no longer the Great Divine Fiend formation or the Zhoutian Star formation that could counterattack the Primordial Chaos Saint. After the Primordial Chaos sages unified their pace, it was the general trend. The rolling wheels would crush anything in front of them. Therefore, Fushi's reincarnation journey was very smooth. However, under Hongjun Tiandao, the general trend did not change, and small matters could be reversed. With Fushi's reincarnation, everything went smoothly in the beginning. Everything was carried out in an orderly manner. Although they could not calculate the exact location of Emperor Fushi, Laozi and Nuwa did not feel very flustered. They thought that Samsura and Hongjun Tiandao were covering up to protect the emperor. However, after this situation continued for a period of time, everyone began to feel that something was wrong. This was because even Nuwa, the mother of the human race and Fushi's sister, could not sense Fushi's whereabouts at all. Not only that, even when she used the stately painting to make a deduction, she could not sense anything. This time, no matter how slow she was, she knew that something was wrong. Could it be that Hutu did something? Nuwa immediately wondered if Hutu had gone back on her words, saying one thing in front of others and another behind their backs. On the surface, she had agreed to the deal with Laozi, but she still could not let go of her hatred and had done something to Fushi's primordial spirit. Angry and anxious, Nuwa quickly contacted Laozi. Probably not. As for Nuwa's speculation, Laozi thought about it and shook his head. Sages still had to be thick-skinned. What they said was the will of heaven. Once they went against it, they would be born with inner demons. It was not worth it for such a small matter. Besides, if you do it, I'll do it. Today, you did something to Fushi. In the future, you have to guard against Nuwa's attack on the human sovereign of the Wu people. One could only be a thief for 1,000 days. How could one guard against a thief for 1,000 days? After all, there was still a loophole, especially under the premise that Nuwa was a sage and had a great influence on the human race. Hutu would not lose the big picture because of a small matter. Let's deduce it together. Although he felt that it was not Hutu, Laozi was also very cautious about such things that were out of his control. Unfortunately, even after the two of them worked together to deduce, the result was still a blur. Their hearts immediately sank. After all, the 3 sovereigns and 5 emperors were not only related to the human race becoming the main character of the world, but also related to their fate and path. For Nuwa, in addition to that, it was also related to Fushi. If there was a problem, the consequences were not something they were willing to bear. How could this be? Nuwa's slightly anxious and worried voice sounded. The 3 sovereigns and 5 emperors are the general trend. None of the sages will take action. In the desolation, the only thing that we can deduce without any problems is probably after the initial worry. Laozi quickly came back to his senses. Thousands of thoughts flashed through his mind, and he quickly sorted out his thoughts. Although he did not finish his sentence, the meaning was self-evident. Laozi's spearhead was pointed at the blood sea Fang Qingshan. Damn it! Nuwa gritted her teeth, but she was very disappointed. Fang Qingshan was her nemesis. First it was the cauldron of heaven and earth, Then it was the first battle between the sorcerer and demon race. And finally, it was the exchange of spiritual treasures. Now it was her brother. Unfortunately, if it was any other sage, even if it was Laozi, Tong Tian, or Ro, Niwa would dare to resist, but Fang Qingshan was the only one who had become a nightmare in her heart. After all, even Hong Jun had suffered a great loss in his hands, and she had even died because of him. She did not want to experience that again in this lifetime. Eldest senior brother, what should we do now? Niwa asked. Why don't we go to the Purple Cloud Palace to look for teacher? Wait. Laozi shook his head and spat out a word. If he looked for Hong Jun for everything, wouldn't it make him look incompetent? Of course, the most important reason why he did not immediately go to the Purple Cloud Palace to look for Hong Jun was that according to the results of the calculations, although he could not deduce the reason, the general trend had not changed. Yes, the general trend had not changed, and what Fang Qingshan wanted to change was only a small trend. When Laozi and the others were discussing the establishment of the 3 sovereigns and 5 emperors, although Fang Qingshan was in seclusion, he also received the news. After all, he still had a treasure in his hands, the Kongtong seal, which was the treasure of the human sovereign. Naturally, the discussion of the 3 sovereigns and 5 emperors could not be hidden from Fang Qingshan. Although the 3 sovereigns and 5 emperors had immeasurable merits, it was not very attractive to Fang Qingshan. After all, he was someone who was going to leave the desolation. Not to mention the merits of humanity. Even the merits of Hong Jun Tiandao were the same. Moreover, he had collected a lot of merits in his secret vault, and the merits of educating the 3 sovereigns and 5 emperors were naturally not worth his attention. However, although he was not interested in it, it did not mean that others were not interested in it. The disciples of the 3 religions were all very interested in this matter. Chapter 1122. Although the Desolation Realm was a great world and ranked at the bottom among the myriad realms, it could still be ranked high. It could bear primordial chaos saints, Hong Jun Tiandao, and even experts in the immortal realm. However, being able to bear was one thing, being able to breed it, and being able to breed it so quickly was another. In the Desolation Realm, before the primordial chaos realm, everything could be followed. As long as one followed the prescribed order, as long as one's aptitude was not bad, and there were some opportunities, one could eventually succeed. As for the primordial chaos saint, although it was difficult, it was not impossible. Whether it was the primordial chaos purple chi, the blessing of providence, or the presence of merit, they were all shortcuts. However, after the primordial chaos realm, it would be difficult to break through. Why did Fang Qingshan encounter the opportunity left by Laozi in the great dominator world? It was because it was too difficult and time-consuming to break through in the Desolation Realm. Therefore, he needed to travel the myriad realms and look for opportunities. In Fang Qingshan's current view, Laozi's cultivation level had not reached the late-stage primordial chaos realm, even when he reached the god investiture realm and the pilgrimage to the west. If Fang Qingshan planned to take root in the Desolation Realm, he was afraid that Laozi and the others would be a lesson for him. After all, they were Hong Jun Tiandao sages and were favored by Hong Jun Tiandao. Therefore, when he felt that his cultivation was getting slower and that he had found all the opportunities he should have found, Fang Qingshan had the idea of leaving the Desolation Realm. However, the only thing he could not let go was the Blood Sea and the Azura clan. It was said that when the predecessors planted the trees, the descendants enjoyed the shade. However, when it came to him, it was like a son repaying his father's debts. Once he left the Desolation Realm, the Blood Sea and the Azura clan would definitely be cleansed by the Hong Jun Tiandao sages. Putting aside the hatred between him and Hong Jun and Niwa, the 2 Westerners would not let go of this opportunity to take advantage of the Desolation Realm just for the sake of the doctrine. After all, the original trajectory was already a real example. Mingi was a guest of the Purple Cloud Palace, but he was suppressed by Xidagarba to the point that he could not breathe. How could he not learn from this? Therefore, before Fang Qingshan left, he was prepared to make a plan for the Blood Sea and the Azura tribe. The simplest way was for Fang Qingshan to take all of them away. However, in the end, this was just his wishful thinking. In the end, there were still people who didn't want to leave, especially the Shura sovereign. After all, once he left, the Blood Sea would respect him as the supreme being. Once he refined the Blood Sea, as long as the Blood Sea was not destroyed, he would not die. Even though he was surrounded by enemies, he was confident that he could support the Azura tribe. However, he did not know whether it was right or wrong to say that he would not die as long as the Blood Sea was not destroyed. It was just a matter of whether the other party was willing to spend the effort or not. Regarding this, Fang Qingshan did not state it clearly. He believed that the Shura sovereign also understood. After all, even Nuwa had died in Hongjun. It was just that when the son grew up, he couldn't control his parents. An eagle could only soar in the sky after it left its parents. Therefore, Fang Qingshan didn't think that the Shura sovereign's decision was wrong. After all, though the Desolation tribe's enemies were powerful, as long as he planned it well, he might be able to survive. If he left with Ling Xian, he wouldn't have to worry about his life, but he wouldn't be able to gain experience. Plus, on the path of cultivation, there would be danger at every step. If he relied on himself, he would end up with nothing. Ignoring all these, if he didn't leave the Desolation tribe, as long as he had the appropriate capabilities, it would be fine. However, to have the power to fight against Hongjun Tiandao was, without a doubt, a fantasy. Fighting against Hongjun Tiandao would be difficult. Even fighting against a saint would be difficult. After all, Fang Qingshan no longer had the Hongmeng immortal energy. If the Shura sovereign wanted to break through the shackles of the immemorial era, even if he had the talent, he didn't have the time. Since he couldn't rely on his own capabilities, he could only rely on karma. When the time came, heaven and earth would work together. Boundless karma would be hard to bully. As long as he had immeasurable karma, as long as he became an existence like the 3 sovereigns and 5 emperors, Hongjun Tiandao would be merciful. If he continued to live with his tail between his legs, he could at least survive like the Lich or the Nether River in the original trajectory. Actually, Fang Qingshan had been doing that a long time ago. Back then, when the Lady of Earth transformed into reincarnation, Fang Qingshan helped to perfect the Netherworld. Originally, Ox Head, Horse Face, and the black and white impermanence should have been the soul-reaping envoy in the management of the Netherworld. However, Fang Qingshan inserted the Shura clan into it, not because he wanted to interfere with the authority of the Netherworld, but because he wanted to prepare for a rainy day. It was to accumulate karma, so that after he left the Desolation tribe, the Blood Sea, and the Shura clan would have a way out. However, it wasn't enough. Therefore, after Fang Qingshan found out about the 3 sovereigns and 5 emperors, he continued to plan for the Shura sovereign. The 3 sovereigns and 5 emperors had immeasurable karma. Educating the 3 sovereigns and 5 emperors was also of immeasurable karma. Although it wasn't of much use to Fang Qingshan, it was a great opportunity for the Shura sovereign. As long as he had the karma of educating the 3 sovereigns and 5 emperors, plus the karma of the Blood Sea itself and the Netherworld, plus the fact that he wouldn't die as long as the Blood Sea didn't dry up, the saints in Hongjun Tiandao wouldn't risk universal condemnation. It was just that it wasn't easy to snatch karma from Hongjun Tiandao. Therefore, Fang Qingshan flipped the table and used the timeless arc to mess up the heavenly secrets, but it didn't change the general trend. Then, relying on his foresight, he let the Shura sovereign take the Renhuang treasure and go find Fushi to educate the heavenly sovereign. There was a human tribe called the Fengyan tribe. There was a woman in the tribe who was born in the Zhu city of Huashu Mountain. She was called the Huashu clan. She was beautiful and kind-hearted and had a good reputation among the human race. To the west of the Fengyan tribe, there was a Thunder Lake. In the Thunder Lake, there lived the Thunder Emperor. He had a human body and a dragon head. His belly bulged like thunder. According to the ancient legends of the tribe, the Thunder Emperor was a deity who lived in the heavens. He controlled thunder and punished all evil in the human world. Therefore, the Thunder Lake was a sacred, forbidden area of the tribe. No one was allowed to enter the Thunder Lake without permission, or they would be expelled from the tribe. However, this was often the case. The more you forbade, the more curious others were. It was like reverse psychology. The more you forbade them to do something, they would do it anyway, as if they were deliberately going against you. The Huashu clan had always been following the rules. She was the child of other people, a model representative. But rebelliousness didn't matter when, where, or gender. One day, Huashu abruptly saw a purple light descend from the sky like a shooting star, seeming to be indescribably noble. More importantly, she seemed to sense an unbreakable connection between her and the purple light, which affected her mind all the time. Following the purple light, Huashu came to the edge of the Thunder Lake. "I'll go take a look, and I'll be back soon. It'll only take a little bit of time." He secretly cheered himself on and convinced himself. Huashu family abandoned the lessons learned by their ancestors and forgot about the terrible punishment. Alone, he followed the strange phenomenon into the Thunder Lake, trying to find out what was going on. Chapter 11:23. She did not know if it was Huashu's will, or if it was her fate, or some other reason. Huashu did not encounter any danger after entering the Lightning Lake, no matter if it was a natural or man-made disaster. It was as if all the dangers had avoided her. Huasu, on the other hand, carefully moved in the direction where the purple light had landed. He was filled with curiosity, nervousness, and excitement. In this way, after about 4 hours, the novelty passed and the sky gradually darkened. The fear of the unknown and the punishment of the tribe began to take the upper hand again. Huashu already had the intention to retreat. Just at this moment, Huashu turned a corner and was shocked. She subconsciously took 3 steps back. In front of her, there was a huge footprint, not to mention the footprint of a human. Even the largest beast Huasu had ever seen was not as big as this footprint. It was more than 100 feet long and 2 to 3 feet wide. Could this be left behind by a primordial beast? Huashu thought to herself. She looked around carefully and did not find the owner of the footprint. Apart from his footprint, there were no other traces, as if it was left by accident. At this moment, Huasu's mind was in a state of turmoil. On one hand, she wanted to retreat. "Let's go. This must be left behind by a beast. Once it finds me, I'm dead. It's getting late. If I don't go back now, I'll be in trouble if the elders find out." On the other hand, she was driven by curiosity. "Let's go take a look. Fangzheng is so close. Just one look." After being in the Lightning Lake for so long, other than this footprint, I didn't find anything else. If I don't take a look, wouldn't I be risking my life for nothing? At this moment, there was a change in the footprint. A streak of purple light, mysterious and noble, flashed and disappeared. Wasn't it the purple light that Huashu saw just now? This was the straw that broke the camel's back. In the end, curiosity won out. Huasu carefully walked into the jumbo footprint, wanted to take a closer look at the footprint and the purple light. To her surprise and even horror, the moment she stepped into the footprint, the purple light instantly disappeared into her abdomen. Huashu couldn't help but cry out. Worry, fear, and all sorts of other emotions welled up in his heart in an instant. After a while, Huasu, who came back to his senses, realized that although the purple light had entered his body, there was nothing wrong with him. He immediately felt a little lucky. However, after this ordeal, Huasu did not dare to stay in the Thunder Lake any longer. He immediately returned home as fast as he could. Because what happened in the Thunder Lock was unbelievable and the Thunder Lock was a forbidden area, Huasu did not tell anyone about it. If things were like this, it would be as peaceful as before. Unfortunately, things didn't work out for them. After a few days, Huasu realized that something was wrong. First, he began to eat more. Then he liked to eat sour food. And then he felt like vomiting. Although she had never experienced it, she could feel that there seemed to be something extra in her. It was connected by blood, and there was an aura of life. Could it be? Huasu panicked. She got pregnant out of wedlock. Fortunately, this was not the feudal dynasty, but the ancient era of desolation. Otherwise, Huasu would have a soak in a pig cage and roast on a bonfire. In the beginning, Huashu naturally wanted to hide it, but seeing that her belly was getting bigger day by day, coupled with other signs of pregnancy, how could she hide it from others? The people around her suddenly looked at her strangely. Fortunately, Huasu had good relationships with others. Otherwise, the rumors would be enough to make her suffer. Very quickly, the news reached the ears of the tribe elders. Huasu was then called in for questioning. When did she get pregnant? Who did she do it with? At this point, Huasu knew that she could no longer hide it. She could only tell them how she saw the purple light, how she was lured into the thunder lock, how the purple light entered her body, and how her stomach started to have problems. As the saying goes, there must be a demon behind everything. After hearing Huasu's narration, the tribe elders felt that something was wrong. They thought that Huasu was pregnant with a monster. Actually, this was not strange. After Fushi, it was common. For example, Yellow Emperor's mother was strolling in the fields one night and looked up at the stars. Suddenly, a ray of light shot out from the sky, like lightning or silver snakes. It circled around the Big Dipper. In the end, the light descended from the sky and landed on Fu Bao. Fu Bao felt her stomach move, and she became pregnant. Of course, this was after Fushi. Everyone knew that natural phenomena were extraordinary. Didn't the emperors of the later generations make up mythical stories to show that they were different? For example, when Lu Yu, the founding emperor of Lu Song, was born, divine light illuminated the room and dew fell on the tree. When Taizu of Song and Taizong were born, the air was filled with fragrance and divine light shone. That aside, although the tribe elders felt that Huashu's child was a little strange, they didn't kill her or expel her from the tribe because of her kindness. They only built her a small hut by the Yu River and let her live there. In the beginning, Huasu could still work by herself. But as her stomach grew bigger and bigger, it affected her movements. After she could no longer work, Huasu had to face the problem of not having enough food. Just as Huasu was worrying about not having enough food, one day, a golden dragon appeared in the sky. It exuded a dominating, noble, and majestic chi. It was exactly the same as the purple chi she saw before. Therefore, she was not afraid. Above the golden dragon, there was a handsome man who made Pan and jealous and Song Yu jealous. His eyes were like stars, his face was like jade, and he looked like the moon. Anyone who saw him would have a good impression of him. Greetings, young master. May I ask why you are here? It was unknown if the golden dragon was an auspicious beast, or if his chi came from the same source as the purple chi, or if this person gave off a harmless vibe. Therefore, Huasu was not afraid. Instead, she asked curiously, Blood Sea Sex Azura leader Wen Tianren greets you. Today, I am here on my master's orders for the child in your stomach. He will become a virtuous paragon of the human race in the future. After he is born, I will accept him as my disciple. What do you think? The person who came was the Shura sovereign of the Shura clan. He didn't hesitate and directly stated his background and goal. Yes, I agree on behalf of my son. On the other hand, Huashu cried tears of joy and nodded eagerly. Chapter 1124. How pitiful a parents! Even though Blood Sea had a thunderous reputation among the giants, causing people's expressions to change at the mention of his name, however, not many ordinary people knew about it. Even so, Huashu cried tears of joy when she heard the Shura sovereign's words. She agreed immediately, not because she was short-sighted, but because of the child in her belly. She got pregnant before marriage and was chased out of the tribe. Food was a problem now, not to mention how the child would grow after birth. Huashu didn't know about the Blood Sea, but seeing that the Shura sovereign had an auspicious beast like the five-clawed golden dragon as his mount, she knew that this person was extraordinary. If such a person took her child as a disciple, her child's future would be better. In fact, the Shura sovereign did this on purpose. The five-clawed golden dragon wasn't a physical entity. It was just a spirit he summoned from the top-grade Khanate spirit treasure, the Swan Tong seal. As for the human sage, Huashu didn't care at all. She just wanted her child to grow up safely. As for whether or not the Shura sovereign had any ulterior motives, it was not within her scope of consideration. That was because she felt that she had nothing that could attract the covetous eyes of cultivators. Good. The Shura sovereign nodded in satisfaction when he heard Huashu's agreement. In that case, you can stay here and rest. I will have people send food here every day. When your child is born, I will officially take him as a disciple. Therefore, the Huashu family stayed by the Yu River with peace of mind. Every day, their food would be delivered by a blood god sent by the Shura emperor. In order to build the strongest foundation for his disciple, the Shura sovereign paid special attention to the baby since he was a fetus. The things he had asked the blood god to deliver were the top treasures that Feng Qingshan had obtained from the primordial world. Of course, the Shura sovereign knew that a weak body couldn't be nourished. Therefore, although they were top-grade natural treasures, they were for building a foundation, strengthening one's foundation, and increasing one's potential. The Shura Emperor arranged a clone of Blood God to stay here not only to provide food for Huashu and her son, but also to protect them in the dark. Although the Huashu family was now blessed by the natural fortune of the world, which allowed them to turn misfortunes into blessings and disasters into blessings. After all, Feng Qingshan had deceived them. If anything went wrong, the Huashu family would be in serious trouble. Therefore, it was better to be cautious. On the other hand, he was also afraid that Laozi, Niuhua, and the others would discover Fushi's whereabouts in advance, which would cause more problems. After arranging everything, the Shura sovereign left Yushui. Just like before his father established the religion, he concealed his cultivation and turned into an ordinary person, entering the human race to live. To do a good job, one must first sharpen his tools. To be the teacher of the human sovereign, it was not as simple as teaching him cultivation. The key was to teach him how to rule the human race. Although the Shura sovereign had experience in leading the Shura clan, the human heart was complicated and couldn't be mentioned in the same breath. Moreover, he had to teach according to the Shura clan's aptitude, which was why he needed to understand the specifics of the human race first. Therefore, from this day on, there was an unattractive young man among the human race who couldn't be found in a crowd. He constantly traveled between different tribes. Humans followed the earth followed the heavens followed the Tao, and the Tao followed nature. Although it wasn't cultivation, if one understood one way, one would understand everything else. In the beginning, the Shura sovereign was not used to it. However, as he spent more time with the human race, he gradually forgot his identity, cultivation, and goals. In the end, he completely turned into a mortal, and his heart gradually gained a deeper understanding. Although the human race wasn't a newborn, and it wasn't as powerless as it was in ancient times when facing the monster slaughter, there were still many problems. The biggest problem was that the human race reproduced too quickly, but most of them were ordinary people. Although they had the golden core path passed down by Lao Tzu, there was no one to guide them. Moreover, in the desolation world, heavenly immortals were like dogs, and golden immortals were everywhere. Even if they cultivated, it wouldn't help. Therefore, the human race still relied on hunting wild beasts and picking wild fruits to survive. Even so, there were often people who starved to death, and it was normal for them to not have enough to eat. Therefore, it was common to see scenes like this among the human race. Precarious, hungry, and separated by life and death. When had a Shura sovereign ever experienced something like this? When he was born, he was the leader of the Shura clan, the emperor of the Shura clan, and he was a natural born golden immortal. Later on, Feng Qingshan made him the leader of the path of Shura in the 6 paths of reincarnation. He had the support of Feng Qingshan and Mosquito Daoren, 2 primordial immortals. In addition, there were countless resources in the Blood Sea. From the weak to the strong, everything could be found. There was almost nothing that one couldn't think of. Therefore, all of this moved the Shura sovereign a lot. Although his cultivation level didn't increase much, his state of mind rose rapidly. Seeing this, Feng Qingshan, who had left a part of his consciousness on the Shura sovereign, couldn't help but nod in satisfaction. The reason why he made the Shura sovereign Fushi's teacher was not only to fight for the human emperor's merit, but also to let the Shura sovereign become more knowledgeable and mortal to improve his state of mind. As long as the Shura sovereign's state of mind improved with the Bloodsea's heritage, there would be plenty of spiritual fruits to accumulate spiritual power. Was it difficult to improve one's cultivation level? In order to better understand the joys and sorrows of partings and the 7 emotions and 6 desires, the Shura sovereign directly used the blood god's magic power and split himself into billions of clones. He wandered around every tribe and every corner. Wherever the human clan lived, the Shura sovereign's footsteps could be seen. Because of this, Shura's sovereign state of mind improved by leaps and bounds. Thinking about it, as long as the human sovereign became a human sovereign, his cultivation would not be like that of Fushi, who could reach the peak of Sage to Be peak and half-step to the origin, but it would not be a big problem for him to break through to the middle and late stage of Sage to Be. At the same time, he had a rough plan for how to guide and teach Fushi to rule the human clan in the future. As the human emperor, he naturally had to solve the human clan's most pressing problems. What was the human clan's most pressing problem? They didn't have enough to eat, natural disasters and demon disasters, and they didn't have strength. In fact, the root cause was that they didn't have strength. The simplest way was to promote the cultivation method among the human clan. But this method wouldn't work. This was because the sages saw the human clan as something in the bag. Anyone who wanted a piece of the cake was their enemy. Although the Shura sovereign was backed by the Blood Sea, if he really went too far, he would probably provoke a group attack. Therefore, if he couldn't improve his strength, he had to find another way. However, before he could come up with a specific solution, he had to put away his doppelgangers and leave the human clan. He returned to Yushue because Fushi was about to be born. Chapter 1125. Back to Yushue. Huashi was chased out of the tribe and left to fend for herself. But because of the good she had done, some people were still worried and came to investigate. Then they found that Huashi was living well, even better than before. Most importantly, they found that someone was delivering food to Huashi on a 5-clawed golden dragon. A 5-clawed golden dragon was an auspicious beast. Shocked, the person hurriedly returned to the tribe and told the elder of this discovery. The elder hurriedly came with his people to take a look. Not to mention the golden dragon, the elder knew that he might have wronged Huashi. Looking at Huashi, he felt like he was looking at a sage. Even with his mortal eyes, he could sense the nobility of the Huashi family, which was growing stronger and stronger. This was because Huashi's mother was valued by her son. Although the baby in her belly was not fully formed, it was still the human emperor, the ruler of the world. Naturally, it was surrounded by purple mist. As the birth mother of Fushi, it was only natural that the boat would rise with the tide. Thus, he hurriedly asked Huashi what had happened. Huashi was chased out of the tribe, but she didn't hold a grudge. Hearing the tribe elder's question, he repeated the Shura sovereign's words in full detail. Hearing this, the elder was both scared and overjoyed. Huashi didn't pay attention to the sage's words, but they heard them. They recalled what Huashi had said, that a purple light descended from the sky, and that a powerful being came riding on a 5-clawed golden dragon to take in a disciple, saying that the unborn child was a sage of the human race. Most importantly, they had sensed a sense of supremacy and nobility from Huashi. Therefore, they believed it without a doubt. If because of their short-sightedness, a sage fell or was forced to wander outside, they would have committed a great sin. Thus, they hurriedly apologized to Huashi, begged for her forgiveness, and took her back to the tribe. It was no wonder that the elder became respectful. Indeed, a land nurtured a talented person, and a talented person nurtured a land. An outstanding talent was too important to a tribe. Flourishing because of one person, falling because of one person. From ancient times until the end of the world, this was a common occurrence. The mountain was not high. It was spiritual if it had an immortal. The water was not deep. It was spiritual if it had a dragon. If the Fengyan tribe really had a sage, then he would certainly lead the entire tribe to prosperity. This was a great temptation for everyone, not to mention the fact that human beings were social animals, and it was hard for them to leave their homelands. Even though a powerful being had taken her child as a disciple, and her child might even become a sage in the future, Huashu was a kind-hearted person. If she could return to the humankind, she would be more than willing. Therefore, after the elder apologized and asked her to return, Huashu didn't hesitate at all. Huashu returned to the clan. At first, no one noticed, but after 10 months of pregnancy, she still didn't give birth. Seeing this, the clan elder was overjoyed. If it was in the past, he would definitely think that it was a monster. But now, he was even more certain that it was the birth of a sage. After all, only natural phenomena could be extraordinary. Therefore, Huashu was pregnant for 12 years. Not only were her people panicked, they were even happier because there was a rumor that the later a virtuous sage was born, the more virtuous he would be. In this way, he would naturally bring greater blessings to the tribe in the future. In fact, this kind of thing was common in the later generations. When Neza was conferred as a god, his mother was pregnant with him for 3 years and 6 months. Of course, this was still normal. Some people stayed in their mother's womb longer than Fushi. This person was Laozi. According to the Taiping Guangji, Laozi's mother was pregnant with him for 72 years. When he was born, his mother happened to be under a plum tree. Laozi cut open his mother's left armpit and gave birth. When he was born, Laozi had white hair, so he was called Laozi. When he was born, Laozi could walk and talk. He pointed at the plum tree and said to his mother, "Let's use this as my surname. Let's not talk about this for now." Huashu had been pregnant for 12 years. When she was born, everyone almost forgot that she was about to give birth. One day, Huashu suddenly felt a pain in her abdomen, as if something was about to fall out. At the same time, in the sky above the tribe, a strange phenomenon appeared. The sun and moon were in the sky, stars were twinkling, purple chi was coming from the east, auspicious light was like clouds, auspicious air was like rain, and a strange fragrance filled the air. Before the tribesmen could help Huashu, the child in her abdomen slipped out of the mother's womb and cried, shaking the sky. "Good, good, good. My first disciple is finally born." As soon as he finished, the Shura sovereign walked in. Looking at Fushi, who could walk as soon as he was born, with starry eyes, the Shura sovereign couldn't help but laugh. "Little guy, are you willing to be my disciple? Immortal Elder is here. Child, hurry up and become my disciple." Huashu didn't know if it was because of the good nutrition during her pregnancy or because Fushi's delivery was too smooth. Although she was surprised that Fushi was like a little adult when he was just born, she thought about it. This was the future sage of the human race. After being pregnant for 12 years, it wasn't surprising that something strange happened. Seeing the Shura sovereign's arrival, she was overjoyed and quickly asked Fushi to become his disciple. Disciple greets teacher. Fushi was indeed Fushi. He could walk and talk as soon as he was born. "Good, good, good." Hearing that Fushi wanted to become his disciple, the Shura sovereign was overjoyed. At this moment, their relationship was confirmed. "Get up. From now on, your name is Fushi." "Yes, from now on, my name is Fushi." Hearing that, Fushi nodded without hesitation. As soon as he said that, the heavenly secret was clear. "Damn it, so that's how it is. Yeah, I see." After the heavenly secret was revealed, Laozi and the others quickly understood what was going on. Just as they had guessed, it was Fang Qingshan of the Blood Sea who disturbed the heavenly secret for no other reason, but because he valued the merit of being the human sovereign's teacher and planned for the Blood Sea Shura sovereign. At the same time, they also realized that the reason why the Shura sovereign was able to subdue Fushi before them in the chaos of the heavenly secret was because of the Kongtong seal. It turned out that the establishment of the 3 sovereigns and 5 emperors was just the beginning. If the human sovereign wanted to return to the throne, he still needed the human sovereign's supreme treasure, the Kongtong seal. Although they were indignant that Fang Qingshan had taken advantage of them, Laozi and the others were also glad. After all, If Fang Qingshan had not planned for the Shura sovereign, the Kongtong seal would not have appeared so easily. In the future, if Fuxi did not have the Kongtong seal, it would be another big problem. As for the transaction with Fang Qingshan, it was not easy. Previously, in order to trade for the mountain river map and the red hydrangea, Hong Jun had taken out 3 precious treasures, namely the Book of Life and Death, the Judgment Brush, and the Peach of Immortality. What was lost at the swings, gained at the mulberry. Although Fang Qingshan had obtained the merit of educating the heavenly sovereign, it was still a pleasant surprise for him to take out the Kongtong seal. Laozi and the others could only pinch their noses and accept it. Chapter 11:26. In the Sea of Blood. The world tree clone's cultivation had broken through. Once it broke through, it absorbed the heaven-opening merit and directly reached the 3rd stage primordial chaos essence. Its combat power was even more powerful and could counterattack those below the 6th stage primordial chaos essence. Even the main body had absorbed the heaven-opening origin purple chi, and the condensation of the immortal substance had also kept up with its cultivation. Although there was no major breakthrough in its cultivation, its foundation, heritage, and combat power were incomparable. It could be said to be a great harvest. At the same time, Shura's sovereign had already taken Fuxi as his disciple. As long as he taught Fuxi carefully, it would only be a matter of time before Fuxi got the human sovereign merit points. All that was left was to wait for Fuxi's cultivation to break through to the intermediate and late stage of Sage to Be. Then, Fuxi would be able to refine the origin and become the owner of the Blood Sea. As long as the Blood Sea did not dry up, Fuxi would not die. Moreover, as the Taoist master of the Tao of Shura, as long as he did not leave the underworld of the Blood Sea, even a sage could not do anything to him. As such, as long as he didn't court death, protecting himself shouldn't be a problem. As such, there was only one thing left for him to do during the desolation. 6 paths of reincarnation. He asked Ho-Tu to borrow the 6 paths reincarnation golden plate to comprehend the law of reincarnation. After completing this task, he would be free and could leave the desolation shop, to the primal chaos, to the myriad worlds, to the source world, to the land of origin, to pursue an even higher Tao, to pursue the figure of the everlasting lotus. Ping Xian of the underworld requests an audience with Fang Qingshan, Taoist. Please see him. When Fang Qingshan was thinking about how to borrow the golden plate of 6 paths of reincarnation from Ho-Tu, Ping Xian arrived outside the small world of the Blood Sea. Why is she here? Fang Qingshan was a little confused. The Wu people had suffered heavy losses in the Great War between the shamans and demons. They were now recuperating, so he did not know why Ping Xian had come. However, he was on good terms with Wu people and Ho-Tu. Ping Xian was Ho-Tu's good corpse, so he would not avoid her. He opened the world wide and welcomed Ping Xian in. Greetings, Lady Ping Xin. Greetings, Fang Taoist. After the two greeted each other, they sat down according to the host and guest. Fang Qingshan took out some good stuff to entertain Ping Xian. There were immortal peaches, 5 needle pine cones, 10,000 demon wine, 5 great heaven sound rice, etc. After tasting the food and chatting for a while, he calmly stated the purpose of his visit to the Blood Sea. Fang Taoist, I have come with a request. Oh. Based on my relationship with Wu people and the Taoist, just tell me directly. As long as I can do it, I won't refuse. Fang Qingshan had gained a lot from the secret vault of the Wu people, and he was ready to borrow the golden plate of 6 paths of reincarnation. Therefore, after hearing what Ping Xian said, he agreed without hesitation, even though he didn't know what it was about. Of course, this was also because he was in the midst of desolation. There weren't many things that could make things difficult for him. That was why he took charge of everything. In that case, many thanks to Taoist. With Fang Qingshan's agreement, Ping Xian heaved a sigh of relief. I would like to ask Fang Taoist to help the Wu people and help Qi Yu become a human sovereign. After Fuxi was born and became the disciple of the Shura sovereign, heavens will become clear. While everyone figured out Fang Qingshan's plan, they also figured out the news about the Kongtong seal, the treasure of the human sovereign. Therefore, Ping Xian had an idea. Back then, when Fuxi was reincarnated into the human clan, Laozi and Yuhua came to the underworld to make a deal with her. She put forward a condition. Since demons could become human sovereigns, the Wu people naturally needed a human sovereign too. However, Laozi and Yuhua didn't promise that the Wu people would become human sovereigns like Fuxi. Instead, they promised one person a ticket. As for whether they succeeded or failed, it would depend on their own means. Ping Xian knew that although Laozi and the others agreed to the condition, they would definitely find fault with it. It was just that at that time, it wasn't appropriate for her to fall out with them because of this. Moreover, she believed in the strength of the Wu people, so she didn't care. However, after calming down and thinking about it carefully, Ping Xian felt that it wasn't appropriate. After all, while the Wu people were strong, their opponents were even stronger. During the Great War of Sorcerers and Demons, Hongjun didn't allow the saints to fight. Now that the world was broken and their endurance was even weaker, it was obvious that they wouldn't allow the saints to fight. Most importantly, if the saints fought, it would be beneficial to Hongjun Tiandao. However, even if Laozi and the others worked together, they wouldn't be a match for Hutu. Therefore, the restriction on Hutu would probably continue to exist. If Hutu couldn't fight, then the Wu people's strength would be cut in half. And while the 12 Zhu Wu had the help of Hutu, it would take an unknown amount of time for him to recover. This was also why Ping Xian wanted a human sovereign. She wanted to use the fate of the human clan to speed up the recovery of the 12 Zhu Wu. Without Hutu, Emperor Jiang, and the others, the strongest of the Wu people was Xing Tian, Xiang Lu, and Jufeng. However, while they were strong, the strongest Xing Tian was merely on par with the Kunpeng and the others. On Hongjun Tiandao's side, even if the saints couldn't fight, weren't there Hao Yin, the Jade Pool, the Queen Mother of the West, Xinyuanzi, Hongyan, and others? Though they weren't students of the saints, if the saints asked, they might help. To know that if the Wu people became the human sovereign, it wouldn't be a good thing for them. Especially since they had to prevent the Wu people from growing too powerful. Back then, when the liches descended, they couldn't even breathe. Therefore, they had to do everything they could to stop them. Therefore, to be safe, Ping Xian thought of the Blood Sea. With their help, along with the human sovereign's treasure, the Kongtong seal, their chances of winning would increase by 30%. If the Taoists can help, I can promise that the Shura sovereign will continue to be the human sovereign's teacher. To win over Fang Qingshan, Ping Xian had put in a lot of effort. She knew that Fang Qingshan was planning out merits for the Shura sovereign, so she directly promised the merits of being the human sovereign's teacher. On the one hand, it was an exchange of benefits, but on the other hand, it was more like getting something for nothing. After all, in order to obtain the merits of being the human sovereign's teacher, one had to first ensure that Qi Yu could ascend to the throne. Also, even if the human sovereign's teacher was not handed over to Fang Qingshan, no one else would help. After all, even if Qi Yu was reincarnated as a human, he wasn't a pure human. He was a shaman. The disciples of the saints, the Xianmen, the Buddhists, and the demon clan wouldn't help. Forget about helping. They would burn incense if they didn't cause trouble for him. This was a form of roping him in. I wonder what the Taoist thinks. Ping Xian asked. This is a small matter. No problem. Fang Qingshan agreed without hesitation. Though in the original trajectory, Qi Yu and Xinyuan lost in the battle, and Xinyuan was the true chosen one, the situation was different now. Not only did he have the help, but the Wu people also had Hutu, a powerful being. Plus, if the Wu people ascended to the throne, they could gain the teachings of another human sovereign. Why wouldn't they do it? Thank you, Taoist, for your help. Hearing this, Ping Xian felt like a rock had been lifted off her chest. She sighed in relief. It's just a win-win situation. Fang Qingshan waved his hand. The samsara has great responsibilities. I won't be leaving for long. I'll take my leave now. Since the problem was solved, Ping Xian said goodbye. But doesn't Fang Qingshan cultivate the laws of the 5 elements? What's the point of comprehending the transmigration law? Although he couldn't figure out, he calmly threw it to the back of his mind. The question he needed to think about now was whether he should lend it to her or not. Although he trusted Fang Qingshan, he was still worried. If he didn't lend it to her, they were allies. Besides, Fang Qingshan had helped the Wu people a lot and had even agreed to his request. It would be somewhat unreasonable for him to be so decisive now. You don't have to feel burdened, Your Highness. If you're willing to lend it to me, I'll owe you and the Wu people a favor. If I'm unwilling, it won't affect the friendship between me, Your Highness, and the Wu people. Upon seeing calmly, who was deep in thought, Fang Qingshan said slowly, "After all, the 6 paths of reincarnation golden plate is different from other things. There are all kinds of people in this vast world. There is no shortage of people who keep their promises, and there is no shortage of people like Niwa who borrow treasures without returning them. It's better to be cautious. If someone borrowed the chessboard of heavens or the timeless ark from him, even if they were close, Fang Qingshan would still consider it. Since he was already like this, how could he ask others to do anything? Besides, the golden plate of 6 paths of reincarnation could help him cultivate the transmigration law, but it was not necessary. Especially after he integrated the reincarnation mirror, the Kunlun mirror, and the Haotian mirror, the Samsara mirror had reached the limit of a primordial supreme treasure. Now, Fang Qingshan had a kind of open-mindedness. If he got it, he would be lucky. If he didn't, he would be doomed. Moreover, if he borrowed something from others, it was a favor. If he didn't, it was his duty. He couldn't force it. As for demanding repayment, Fang Qingshan would never do such a thing. Of course, if he was an enemy, it would be another matter. After all, Fang Qingshan was not a pedantic person. Hearing Fang Qingshan's words, Ping Xin felt a little better. After all, she had asked Fang Qingshan for help to plan for the throne of the human emperor for the Wu people, and Fang Qingshan agreed without hesitation. But when it came to her, she was hesitant. Although the two of them were not equally important to each other, Ping Xin still felt a little guilty. "Taoist, please wait a moment. I'll ask for my opinion," Ping Xin said apologetically. "It's okay. Please go ahead, Your Highness." Fang Qingshan waved his hand, indicating that he didn't mind. Therefore, Ping Xin closed her eyes and began to communicate with the Lady of Earth, telling her everything in the Blood Sea and asking her to make the final decision whether to lend it or not. North Continent, Pangu Hall. In a blood pool, there were 12 drops of blood essence in different colors: red, orange, yellow, green, cyan, blue, and purple. They were as big as earthen bowls, exuding endless pressure. If anyone below the Zenith Heaven Golden Immortal got close to this blood, his blood would flow backward, and his heart would beat rapidly. These 12 drops of blood essence were none other than the 12 Zhu Wu of the Wu people. Everyone else thought that the 12 Zhu Wu had died like Di Juntai, but they didn't know that long before the great sorcerer and demon war, they had each taken a drop of blood essence and a wisp of their natal souls and placed them in this blood pool to be nurtured. This blood pool was the treasure of the Wu people. It had nurtured all the Wu people, including the 12 Zhu Wu. At this moment, Hutu was standing beside the blood pool, nurturing her own power and communicating with the power of the living heart in the statue of Pangu in the Pangu Hall. She wanted to speed up the resurrection of Dijiang and the others. At a certain moment, Hutu's heart suddenly moved. She stopped what she was doing and frowned slightly. Ping Xin had already informed her of all kinds of things, including the reincarnation of Fuxi into the human clan, the deal she had made to get a ticket to the human sovereign realm, the request for help from Fang Qingshan, and Fang Qingshan's request to borrow it. Hearing that Ping Xin had helped the Wu people to get a ticket to the human sovereign realm, Hutu was naturally overjoyed. As for Fang Qingshan's request to borrow it, he naturally frowned. After all, it was the power of samsara and also his natal item. How could he show it to others so easily? Ordinary cultivators all knew that they shouldn't easily inquire about other people's cultivation methods, spells, magical powers, spiritual treasures, trump cards, and so on. But if he didn't lend it, it would seem a little unreasonable. The key was that he had just helped the Wu people. If they turned their backs on him right after, it was really a little unreasonable. And it wasn't just this time. Basically, the Blood Sea had always helped the Wu people a lot. Although Fang Qingshan said he didn't care, it was hard to know what was going on. Who knew what was going on? Sister, what's bothering you? Hutu suddenly stopped and frowned slightly. She seemed to be in a dilemma, which naturally attracted the attention of Dijiang and the others in the blood pool. Chapter 1128. In the Great War of Sorcerer and Demon, Dijiang and the others all died. Although they didn't die completely because they left a backup plan, they only had a drop of blood essence and a wisp of natal soul left. Fortunately, the Wu tribe had a strong foundation. Not only did they have Hutu, an expert of the origin, who was of the same origin as them, to tirelessly inject primordial qi into them. The most important thing was that the heart left by Pangu was channeling his blood essence, as well as some other heavenly materials and earthly treasures. Although they hadn't fully recovered, they had more or less recovered some strength after such a long period of nourishment. Although they couldn't even transform into human forms, at least they weren't so weak that they fell into a deep sleep. Within the range of the blood pool, they could still release their divine awareness to sense and speak. Therefore, they immediately discovered Hutu's abnormality. Well, two heads were better than one. When Dijiang and the others asked, Hutu didn't hide anything. She told them everything the good corpse had told her. Then she asked, Brother, sister, do you think I should agree or not? Hey, I thought it was something important. So that's it. What's there to hesitate about? Just agree. As soon as Hutu finished speaking, Zhurong started to shout. But Hutu was about to explain the reason for her hesitation. But Zhurong interrupted her. No buts. I know what you're hesitating about. Although Zhurong was hot-tempered and seemed reckless, he was actually very smart. He just didn't like to use his brain and liked to fight. You can rest assured about what you're worried about, Zhurong said loudly. Not to mention that Fang Daoist has helped the Wu people a lot. We should return the favor. Besides, Daoist Fang Qingshan has so many treasures, such as the Bell of Chaos, the flags of 5 elements, the cauldron of heaven and earth, the sky-measuring primordial ruler. Plus, he even entered our secret vault. He hasn't been tempted by so many treasures. How can he be tempted by the golden plate of reincarnation? As for the authority of the underworld, if he cared about it, he wouldn't have given you the book of life and death and the judgment pen in the first place. Moreover, even if we take 10,000 steps back and assume that he really wants to seize the 6 paths of reincarnation golden plate and seize the authority of the underworld, I'm afraid that even if we don't care, Hong Jun will be the first to object. You should know that the underworld and samsara are different from other places. Not only is it one of the 3 realms of desolation, but it is also one of the 3 Daos of heaven, earth, and man. It's fine if it's controlled by others. After all, no one can surpass Hongjun Tiandao. However, if it's controlled by Fang Qingshan, it'll be a big problem. Zhu Rong's meaningful words immediately enlightened Ho Tuesday. His words had awakened the dreamer. Yes, among the desolation, Daozu Hongjun was the one who was most unwilling to see Fang Qingshan become powerful. Once Fang Qingshan controlled the underground tunnel, Hongjun would not be able to eat and sleep in peace, and they would not be able to suppress him. If Fang Qingshan wanted to, he could even counterattack Hongjun Tiandao with the underground tunnel. After all, even now, Hongjun could only manage to maintain the situation where water in the well did not change water in the river. Therefore, it could be seen that he did not have full confidence to deal with Fang Qingshan at all. After understanding all this, Hotu couldn't help but look at Zhu Rong in a new light. Although she knew that none of her brothers was simple, it was not until now that she really understood it. It seemed that she really underestimated her brothers. She was still struggling with such a thing, but Zhu Rong's words hit the nail on the head. After making the decision, Ho2 immediately informed Ping Xin. It seemed that a long time had passed since Ping Xin informed Ho2, and Ho2 agreed. But in fact, it was only a moment. Ping Xin opened her eyes and looked into Fang Qingshan's eyes. She smiled and nodded. I have agreed. In that case, thank you very much, Taoist. Hearing that, Fang Qingshan also showed a hint of joy on his face. Then he stood up and bowed to Ping Xin to express his gratitude. However, because the golden plate of 6 paths of reincarnation is a precious treasure of the netherworld, it can't be used easily. Therefore, if Taoist wants to comprehend it, he needs to enter the reincarnation. Ping Xin stepped aside, accepted half of the bow, and said, I understand. Fang Qingshan nodded to show that he understood. Then, Fang Qingshan followed Ping Xin back to the netherworld. Under Ping Xion's guidance, Fang Qingshan came to the palace next to the 6 paths of reincarnation, which was where Ping Xion usually lived. The structure of this hall was somewhat similar to that of the Pangu Hall. It looked plain, simple, and mysterious. Although it wasn't a powerful treasure, even a pre-world supreme treasure wouldn't be able to break its defense in a short period of time. There was no extra decoration inside, and it looked very simple. There was only a golden plate, which was the same as the 6 paths of reincarnation outside, in the middle of the palace. It was the precious treasure of the netherworld, the golden plate of 6 paths of reincarnation. Under Ping Xion's guidance, Fang Qingshan stayed in the palace to comprehend the law of reincarnation in the golden plate of 6 paths of reincarnation and to verify it with the law in the samsara mirror. For a while, he benefited a lot. However, Fang Qingshan sat cross-legged, holding a mirror in his hand and a golden plate floating in front of him. There was even a projection of the reincarnation passage behind him. His whole body was shrouded in the aura of reincarnation, and even his natal great way of the 5 elements seemed to be difficult to find. For a time, there were 5 divine lights rising: metal, wood, water, fire, earth, white, green, black, red, and yellow, intertwined like 5 heavenly pillars. Their auras were connected, and they reinforced and restrained each other. Metal gave birth to water, water gave birth to wood gave birth to fire, fire gave birth to earth, and earth gave birth to metal. The 5 elements blended and evolved into a wheel. If it went with the flow, it gave birth to each other. If it went against, it gave birth to creation. If it went against, it gave birth to destruction. 1 life, 1 death, and 1 reincarnation, and it gave birth to creation and destruction. Fang Qingshan used the natal great way of the 5 elements as the foundation, the great reincarnation technique of the immortal world as the starting point, combined with the reincarnation demon god, the 5 elements demon god's heritage, the samsara mirror, the 6 paths of reincarnation, and the 6 paths of reincarnation as the reference, constantly transformed and evolved the law of reincarnation. For a time, it could be seen that the law of the 5 elements was the tree, the golden plate of reincarnation, the 6 paths of reincarnation, the samsara mirror, and Fang Qingshan's understanding of reincarnation were the nourishment, and a new reincarnation was gradually born. The flowers blossomed, and the Tao became reincarnation. Countless mysterious reincarnation runes flashed, intertwined together like fish scales, deducing the 6 paths of reincarnation, the law of life and death, the yellow springs of hell, and so on. It was as if one could see countless gods, Buddhas, immortals, ghosts, asuras, beasts, monsters, and so on. The images of all the creatures in the world appeared one after another, one by one around the wheel, respectfully and sincerely praying. There were ancient heavenly sounds echoing, demonic sounds, Buddhist sounds, celestial sounds, heavenly sounds, and asura sounds, one after another, although mixed but not chaotic. It was grotesque and dazzling, and it was extremely mysterious. At first glance, one's entire mind and soul would tremble. It was as if a terrifying force was pulling them out of their bodies and was about to throw them into the 6 paths of reincarnation. Chapter 1129. Feng Daoist, impressive indeed. Seeing this, Pingxin was first shocked, then she sighed. She hadn't thought that Feng Qingshan was really trying to convert the rule of reincarnation. She had never encountered such a thing, not even in Pangu's memories. At most, it was like the slaughtering demon god challenging the destruction demon god in an attempt to replace the top destruction demon god with a high-level slaughter rule. But what she didn't know was that the great path walked alone was because the destruction demon god had already been proven. Therefore, it wasn't that the slaughtering demon god didn't want to convert, but that it was useless unless he killed the destruction demon god. Compared to killing a demon god, defeating one was much easier. But the reincarnation demon god was already dead. Therefore, Feng Qingshan could convert the 5 paths of reincarnation. As for what Hutu would do if he walked the path of reincarnation, Feng Qingshan had actually considered this. First, he had to leave the desolation world and the chaos. As long as he wasn't under the jurisdiction of the Great Path, the Great Path walked alone would not happen. After all, the heavens were so big. It wasn't just the reincarnation demon god, Feng Qingshan, or Hutu who cultivated reincarnation. Not everywhere, but there were many. Only in the end, when he was proving the immortal path, would he encounter the only trouble in the heavens. Plus, Feng Qingshan was confident that he would prove the immortal path before Hutu. Hutu seemed to be the same as Hong Jun back then. Her cultivation had improved by leaps and bounds, and her understanding of the rule of reincarnation was increasing day by day. But success and failure depended on the same person. In the later stages, this speed would suddenly slow down. After all, even Hongjun Tiandao was only at the David Decay level, let alone the Earth Path. If Hutu wanted to use the Earth Path to break through to the immortal path, it would be a fool's dream. Plus, there was Hongjun Tiandao suppression. But Feng Qingshan had the timeless arc and the all-heavens chessboard. He could travel to all heavens. Although it was slower at first, he wouldn't be limited to one place. There were more possibilities. Hutu didn't know the details and couldn't understand why Feng Qingshan chose to cultivate the transmigration law instead of the 5 elements. In her opinion, the loss outweighed the gain. After all, there were 3,000 great Daos, and all of them led to immortality. However, when he saw that Feng Qingshan had successfully converted the 5 elemental laws into the transmigration laws in such a short period of time, it seemed that his attainments were not low, almost catching up to his own comprehension of the transmigration laws. How could he not be moved? When Ping Xin came back to her senses, she lightened her footsteps and carefully left the hall. She did not want to disturb Feng Qingshan's cultivation. What she didn't know was that the moment she left, Feng Qingshan couldn't help but smile. In fact, although Feng Qingshan was cultivating previously, he did not go into seclusion. Not only did he leave a trace of his consciousness outside to be on guard, but he also had Mosquito Dowrin and the World Tree clone hiding in the dark to protect him. One shouldn't have the intention to harm others, but one must always be on guard. Although Feng Qingshan and the Wu people were on good terms with Hutu, and Ping Xin was kind-hearted, there was no knowing what was in a man's heart. However, there was no knowing what was in a man's heart. How could Feng Qingshan not have his guard up? If he had let his guard down, he would have long died in another world. In the desolation, Yang Mei continued to recover from his injuries. Feng Qingshan cultivated in seclusion. Hongjun was busy with his schemes. The saint was busy with the human clan, and Hutu was busy with the resurrection plan of Dijiang and the others. What they didn't know was that an accident was approaching. It was unknown how many light years away from the primordial world, at the edge of this chaotic world, a hole suddenly opened. It was as if someone had used the law of space to open up a passageway. In fact, it wasn't so simple. First of all, this wasn't like Dijiang's short-step space magic in the desolation. He only borrowed the power of the origin of space and didn't break the space. Furthermore, this cave entrance was not something that could be casually opened. This wasn't the boundless world, the desolation, or even the chaotic world, but the heavenly void. In the peak of the desolation world, a saint who had just entered the primordial chaos would have a hard time breaking it without a cardinal treasure, let alone penetrating it. In the chaotic world, without the strength of a late-stage primordial chaos expert, one shouldn't even think about breaking the chaotic space. To penetrate the chaotic world, one would probably need at least a half-step immortal with a cardinal treasure. As for this boundless void, even an immortal realm expert wouldn't find it easy to open such a passage. Moreover, the distance was also a problem. After saying so much, he just wanted to show that this hole wasn't simple, because it was a wormhole. Although the desolation world was huge, saints and primordial chaos experts could reach any place in any world with a thought. Compared to the chaotic world, the desolation world was probably not much different, even if it wasn't a drop in the ocean. In the past, in order to avoid the great tribulation of creation, Yang may have traveled from the center of the chaotic world to the edge of the chaotic world. Even with his space speed, it had taken him more than 1,000 years. Compared to the void of the various worlds, the chaotic world paled in comparison. Let's put it this way. If the boundless void was a universe, then the various chaotic worlds were equivalent to territories similar to the Milky Way. It might not be that big. The desolation world was equivalent to the solar system of the Milky Way. As for the boundless worlds, they were equivalent to stars. As for the medium, small, and even the so-called blessed grotto heavens, they didn't need to be mentioned at all. He just wanted to show that the boundless void was too big. It was so big that even an immortal realm expert would have a headache traveling from one chaotic world to another, let alone a primordial chaos expert. Traveling between two worlds for a few years or decades was the shortest time. The longest would be calculated in hundreds, thousands, or even tens of thousands of years. This was for an immortal realm expert, let alone someone with a low cultivation level. Such a long time was obviously extremely disadvantageous for traveling through the void. Not only was it a waste of time, but it was also a waste of life. Thus, if he hadn't reached the immortal realm, wanting to leave his chaos world and travel around the universe was just a pipe dream. Of course, a living person wouldn't die from holding their urine. In order to shorten such a distance, there were special void cruises. Although these cruises couldn't compare to the timeless ark, they were still quite fast. Not only did they save time and energy, but they were also much safer than traveling alone. With a cruise ship, one wouldn't need to consume energy all the time. One could stay in peak condition and deal with emergencies better. Of course, the time saved here was only relative to traveling alone in the void. The speed of void cruise was not much faster than that of a late-stage primordial chaos expert. However, it consumed energy, so it would be fine as long as it constantly changed its energy source. If one traveled alone, they would have to stop every once in a while to rest and recover their dermic powers. Therefore, this was the time saved by the cruise ship. It could keep moving forward without stopping. Chapter 1130. Apart from the void ship, there was also a teleportation array. This teleportation array was different from the ordinary teleportation array between a place, a city, a state, or even a world. Such a teleportation array was only suitable for ordinary people. It was suitable for people below the Zenith Heaven realm or even Golden Immortal realm. That was because the teleportation array in a world, even in the Desolation world, might not be faster than the Kuan Peng, Dijiang, and Dijun. The teleportation array here was called the Void Teleportation Array. As the name suggested, it was specially used for void teleportation. Of course, under normal circumstances, it was impossible to directly teleport from one chaotic world to another. It was not that there were none, but even if it was successfully set up, ordinary primordial chaos immortals would not be able to afford it. Not only were there few teleportation arrays that connected two chaotic worlds, but they were also only suitable for tycoons and people with at least a half-step immortal realm cultivation. Fortunately, there was no need to directly teleport from one chaotic world to another. One could choose some bases in the middle and build a transit station. They could teleport a few more times. However, such bases were also hard to come by. After all, even the chaotic world was so dangerous. Under the primordial chaos immortal realm, there was a slim chance of survival. There were all kinds of chaos storms, chaos ferocious beasts, and even bandits who specialized in hunting in the chaos. Even early-stage primordial chaos immortal realm experts might be in danger without the defense of a cardinal treasure, let alone the boundless void, which was even more dangerous than the chaotic world. Finding a safe place was undoubtedly like looking for a needle in a haystack. It all depended on luck. Apart from a void ship and the void teleportation array, there was another method that was simple, safe, and quick: the wormhole. However, compared to the void ship and the void teleportation array, the wormhole was a more precious national treasure. It was something that could only be encountered by chance. That was because wormholes were not man-made, but formed naturally. They were the result of the vibration of the void origins spatial law. Coincidentally, a void ferocious beast, the void worm, had bitten through the void, which had become weak due to the vibration, and thus opened up a passage connecting two places. However, this kind of wormhole wasn't just dependent on the will of the heavens. Even the distance between the two places was dependent on fate. It was possible that it was connected to two primal chaos worlds, but it was also possible that the distance wasn't very far. However, compared to the teleportation formation and the cruise ship, the advantages of the wormhole were also great. First of all, he did not need to consume any energy. It was as if he was borrowing the power of the void. Secondly, he was very safe and would not encounter any natural or man-made disasters in the void. In addition, he was also the fastest. Although entering the wormhole did not mean that time would stop, he could save more than half of the time compared to the teleportation formation. It was just that it wasn't easy to find a wormhole. Once a wormhole was opened, it would be extremely secretive. Unless one had a special divine ability, treasure, or special physique, even if a great divinity was in the vicinity, it would be difficult to catch a trace of it and find its specific location. Once it was discovered, it would immediately be occupied by the nearby major powers. After all, wormholes could be considered a strategic resource. By relying on the wormhole, they could attack, retreat, and even become rich. There were even people who used wormholes to soar into the sky. This person could be considered a legend in the boundless void. Because he found a wormhole, he sold it for a sky-high price. Using this opportunity, his cultivation advanced by leaps and bounds and broke through to the immortal realm. In fact, his cultivation was not considered weak among the immortal realm. The wormhole here in the Pangu Chaos world was actually formed when Pangu opened the sky and confirmed his Tao. His power communicated with the great Tao's origin and caused the origin to vibrate. However, in that battle, not only Pangu, but many chaos demon gods were killed or injured. After so many years, they still had not recovered. No one left the chaos world. In addition, there was no corresponding physique, divine ability, or spirit treasure. In addition, the Pangu chaos world was located in a remote place. It was a newborn chaos world. Therefore, no one had discovered this place. If Yang Mei left the chaos world and happened to walk in this direction, he might be able to discover it. However, this was only an assumption. It also depended on luck. Moreover, this wormhole could be hidden for a while, but not forever. In the end, it was still discovered. From the wormhole, a dozen spaceships flew out one after another. These spaceships were neither the Timeless Ark nor the Void cruise ship. If someone who traveled the Void all year round, or someone from Major Force, saw the flag hanging at the bow of the ship and the half-mast man with the corner of his mouth slightly raised in a mysterious and ferocious smile, they would immediately understand that this was a small team of void bandits. A horse would not get fat without grass at night, and a man would not get rich without a windfall. No matter when, no matter where, no matter what cultivation level, there was no lack of people who walked the unconventional path. Void bandits were the most hated by those who walked the void, because these people could not be exterminated or killed. They were like cockroaches that could not be killed. Moreover, they were very strong. Anyone who could become a void bandit not only had a high cultivation level, but also a ruthless temperament and rich combat experience. Most importantly, These people were well versed in guerrilla warfare. As long as the person they targeted did not have absolute strength, they would retreat when the enemy advanced, attack when the enemy retreated, attack when the enemy was tired, attack when the enemy was trapped. Therefore, even if it was a top-notch powerhouse from all over the universe, even if it was a cultivator of this level, they would still dare to kill them. If they couldn't win, they would turn around and flee into the void to survive. Because they were all too familiar with these places, and they were extremely fast. The void was too vast. If you were not familiar with the terrain and got lost, then sorry to say, don't even think about chasing them down. You might end up getting yourself killed. Just like that, a void thief that couldn't be shaken off as soon as they came into contact with him was incredibly powerful. How could anyone who walked through the void not be helpless against him? This is Chaos Rampart. This is a chaotic world. This world was not marked on the void map. It seems like this is a chaotic world that hasn't been exposed yet. A new world. This is great. We're going to be rich. It's still too early to say that. Let's see how strong this chaotic world is. The Void Bandits' ship opened, and one by one, Void Bandits with fierce auras walked out. Based on their auras, the weakest of these people had the strength of a late-stage quasi-sage. They were comparable to Zheng Yuanzi, Kuan Peng, and Hong Yun. The strongest person was even stronger than Sanqing, Jie Yin, Zhuanti, and Yuhua. He was not any weaker than Hutu. His cultivation level was around Mixed Essence Stage 5. One should know that this was only a branch of the Void Bandits, and they already had such strength. The power of the Void Bandits was evident. Apart from being strong, the most obvious characteristic of these people was greed. They looked at the chaotic world as if they were looking in naked beauty. That kind of possessiveness was almost undisguised. Let's go. We'll go scout first. If there's a chance, we'll do it. If not, we'll send a message back and inform the boss. After watching for a while, the leader of the bandits called out. Everyone boarded the Void Bandits' ship again and entered the chaotic world at lightning speed. Chapter 1131. Although the origin of the world had no life and was not a living creature, it had a will. It knew how to seek benefits and avoid harm. The arrival of the Void Bandits and their strong malice naturally alarmed the origin of the world. After all, this force was not small for the current Pan-Gu Chaos world. After all, there were dozens of Void Bandit ships with very strong combat power. They were at least comparable to Khanate Cardinal treasures. Among them was a 5th-stage Primordial Chaos Bandit captain. Below him were several early-stage Primordial Chaos Bandits and hundreds of Quasi-Sage Bandits. In particular, these people had monstrous negative karma. Fortunately, the strongest was only at the 5th-stage Primordial Chaos. The origin of Chaos was not too shocked, as it was still within an acceptable range. However, it still passed on the news of the changes in the world to the only desolation world in the chaos, Hongjun Tiandao, which was also the strongest Hongjun in the chaos. This was because this was the first time that people from the other domain had appeared in the Pan-Gu chaos. As the saying went, there would be a second. This exposed a problem, which was that the Pan-Gu chaotic world had been exposed to the heavens and realms. Today, only mid-stage primordial chaos had come, so it was naturally not a big deal. However, who could guarantee that late-stage primordial chaos, peak primordial chaos, half-step immortal, or even immortal experts would come in the future? The origin of Pan-Gu Chaos World had to take this seriously. The tunnel had appeared, the human clan had become the main character of the world, and the human Tao was about to prosper. All the sages had returned to their positions. Coupled with the integration of Heavenly Fiend Heaven and Ro, everything was ready. Hongjun was already thinking about how to deal with Fang Qingshan and Yang Mei, when to act, how to minimize the losses, and how to catch them all in one fell swoop. The last time, he had not considered everything comprehensively and failed to know his enemy. Not only had he failed at the last step, but he had also suffered a big loss. However, plans could not keep up with changes. Before he could act here, Hongjun Tiandao received a message from the Tao. There were visitors from the other domain with high strength and strong malice. Damn it, Hong Jun cursed in his heart. Although he really wanted to resist the foreign invasion and pacify the internal situation first, his rationality told him that this would not do. Because, even now, they only had a 50-50 chance of winning against Fang Qingshan and Yang Mei. This was after he had communicated with the Great Dao and found out why he had fallen back then, why Hongjun Tiandao had been severely injured, and that the everlasting lotus would not attack unless the timeless arc advanced, and unless someone deliberately attacked him. On the other hand, if he wasn't able to suppress Yang, Mei, and Fang Qingshan, then not to mention dealing with the formidable enemies of the Outer Realm, he wouldn't even be able to protect himself. Even though he had defeated Fang Qingshan and Yang Mei, and even suppressed the two of them. However, the final result would definitely be to kill 1,000 enemies and suffer 800 casualties. At that time, even if they occupied an advantageous position at the right time, the right place, and the right people, they would probably be unable to deal with the Xeno race enemies, even if they wanted to. After all, this was an enemy that could trigger the warning of the Great Dao. No matter how much he valued it, it would not be too much. I'll let you guys off first. I'll deal with you guys after dealing with the invading enemies. Hong Jun closed his eyes and took a deep breath. After a while, he opened his eyes and muttered to himself. This way it will be safer. Enemies who could be alerted by the Great Dao were at least at the primordial chaos realm. Once he dealt with them, his strength would definitely increase greatly with the physical bodies, nomological laws, and numinous treasure feedback of the Desolation Realm experts. At that time, his chances of winning against Fang Qingshan and Yang Mei would definitely increase greatly. Hongjuan's mood was much better at this thought. Of course, Fang Qingshan did not know all this. At the moment, he was still in the Earth Realm, comprehending the transmigration law. On the Desolation continent, Fushi had been born and became the disciple of the Shura sovereign. He did not know if it was because he was born to be a sage and was favored by providence, or because he had been nourished by the Shura sovereign in his mother's body. Compared to the Fushi in the original trajectory, it was even stronger. As soon as he was born, he could walk, jump, and speak. He could clearly understand what others meant and express them. If not for the fact that he was not tall enough, those who did not know would think that he was a child who had been born for 12 years. Because of this, after Fushi was born, the Shura sovereign only gave him 3 days to spend with the Huashi clan. After that, he could not wait to impart the Tao and solve his doubts. Fortunately, it was not a completely enclosed education, but a day school. The Shura sovereign built a new house by the Yu River, which was also the place where the Huashi clan had been chased out. Every day when the sun rose, Fushi would come here to learn from the Shura sovereign. He would return home at sunset. The things he imparted were all-encompassing, including but not limited to chi refinement, body tempering techniques, desolation secrets, combat trials, cultivation arts, emperor's mind, and so on. Whenever the Shura sovereign felt that Fushi would need it in the future, he would impart it to him. Fortunately, Fushi was born extraordinary and could learn anything he was taught. He could even deduce many things from one instance. If it was a normal genius, it would have the opposite effect. Therefore, in 3 years, the Shura sovereign had nothing to teach him. Of course, this did not mean that Fushi knew everything. He only understood the theory, but he was still missing one step, which was to put it into practice like cultivation, which required time and effort. Therefore, the Shura sovereign sent Fushi back and had him participate in the management of the tribe. Everyone in the tribe knew that Fushi was born extraordinary and that he was a sage. He was even learning from an immortal. Therefore, even though he was only a 3-year-old child, no one was dissatisfied. Fushi naturally did not disappoint. In the beginning, he observed carefully and did not interrupt. As he became more familiar with things, after careful consideration, he began to participate bit by bit. Not only was Fushi a born know-it-all, but he was also taught by the Shura sovereign. He had his own unique understanding of all sorts of things. At first, he was unfamiliar, but at second, he became familiar. Very quickly, he helped the tribe leader deal with all sorts of things. Seeing this scene, The tribe's chief and elders were all greatly relieved. After a period of time, seeing that Fushi did not make any mistakes, after some discussion, the tribe leader used his old age as an excuse and gave up his position as the tribe leader to Fushi. One place nurtures one's talent, and one's talent nurtures one place. This was not an empty statement. Under Fushi's leadership, the entire tribe became more and more prosperous. Truly, there was a change every day. Very quickly, the tribe became the largest tribe within 1,000 miles, and its name spread far and wide. Fushi's name spread like wildfire. Perhaps it was the celebrity effect, or perhaps it was something else, but Fushi didn't even need to raise his arm and call for help. Within 1,000 miles, or even more, people came to join the tribe. The trend was getting bigger and bigger. The bigger the reputation, the more people came to join the tribe. The more people joined the tribe, the bigger the reputation. Thus, it became a virtuous cycle. Of course, there were disadvantages as well. The bigger the team, the more problems there were. Chapter 1132. As the tribe grew rapidly, all kinds of problems and conflicts popped up like mushrooms after spring rain. Some were major events of a human race, while some were trivial matters. There were as many as the hairs on a cow. Even though Fushi was born knowledgeable and had the guidance of an expert like the Shura sovereign, he couldn't help but be overwhelmed. The main thing was that the development of the human race couldn't be solved with Dharma spells and supernatural powers. Otherwise, although the human race hadn't become the main characters of the world and reached the level of dragons and phoenixes, the human race didn't lack experts. For example, the three ancestors of the human race, Yu Chao, Zi, and Swirenchi. They had displayed the cultivation levels of the 10 demon generals, Bai Zhe, Shang Yang, and the others during the demon massacre. With Providence, even the Kuan Peng couldn't take them down in a short time. If they lacked food, they could use supernatural powers to plant all kinds of fruit trees and accelerate their growth. Or they could suppress demons and use demon enslavement techniques to raise them. Even if they couldn't predict natural disasters, weren't there various supernatural powers and Dharma spells like the amethyst number that could predict the heavenly secrets? There were also all kinds of ferocious beasts and demons that threatened the safety of the human race, so they directly spread cultivation methods and preached the Tao. Wouldn't the experts of a human race be like a surging river? However, the reality wasn't that simple. Maybe it was to better control the human race, or maybe it was the will of heaven, afraid that the burden of the world would increase, or maybe there were other reasons. Even though Sanxing and the others had set up sects with the human race as the foundation, they could preach and accept disciples, but they couldn't easily impart cultivation methods. That was because if everyone cultivated with their natural Tao bodies, they would probably quickly become liches or even surpass liches. Didn't you see that just by passing down a bit of the golden core Tao, the entire human race had grown from a newborn to a point where even liches felt threatened? If the human race practiced cultivation, everyone would be like dragons and become immortals. Not only would the burden of the world increase, but more importantly, the human race might really be able to escape the control of the saints. Although everyone below the saints was an ant, that didn't mean that the saints were the most powerful and invincible. Apart from sages, there was also primordial chaos. Although it was difficult to become primordial chaos, it was not impossible. If Laozi and the others had not established the 3 sovereigns and 5 emperors, but only the sacred emperor, they would have gathered the merit and fate of the 3 sovereigns and 5 emperors and the blessing of humanity. Even if Hongjun Tiandao were to suppress them, it would be difficult to see any effect. It would not have been a problem for them to break through the bottleneck and become mixed essence, or at least human Tao sage. Other than that, there were also formations. The Wu people had the great divine fiendish formation, the demon race had the Zhodian star formation, and the Jie school had the fairy slaying sword formation. These 3 formations were all existences that could go against the saints. Although the human race currently did not have a comparable formation, it did not mean that there would not be one in the future, and it did not mean that there would not be one in the future. After all, It was better to be safe than sorry. If the human race had such a formation, coupled with the emergence of experts, they would not be able to completely break free from the control of the sages. At the very least, the sages would not be able to order the human race around. In order to better control the human race, even the 3 sovereigns, 5 emperors, and the sages had grounded them in the fire cloud cave. In name, it was to suppress the destiny of the human race, and they could not appear unless the human race was in trouble. In reality, it was to weaken their prestige and influence among the human race. Therefore, it was not feasible to rely on cultivation to improve the living environment of the human race. This was because not only would the sages not allow it, but even Hongjun Tiandao would not agree to it. This was because the underground tunnel was a warning. Once the human race became stronger, how could Hongjun Tiandao control it? Since they could not start from the path of cultivation, they could only rely on wisdom. In order to solve the problem of the human race, Fuxi thought of many ways. For example, in order to solve the problem of food and clothing, Fuxi thought of fishing with nets when he saw spiders weaving webs. Moreover, because he caught too much at once, the number of fish and shrimps decreased rapidly. Fuxi also had the foresight to carry out the path of sustainable development. When the number of fish and shrimps decreased, fishing was banned. He even artificially released fish and shrimps. Apart from this, he also led his people to take the initiative to raise all kinds of docile animals with low or no cultivation, such as chickens, ducks, cows, and sheep. He also transplanted all kinds of wild fruit trees. In this way, the human race did not need to go into the mountains to hunt and pick fruits. While the casualties were greatly reduced, food became more abundant. Since then, although the human race did not transition from the stage of hunting and gathering to the stage of farming, they were slowly changing their lifestyle. In addition, Fuxi also found that there was a high chance that the children born from the marriage of close relatives would be stupid or deformed. Therefore, he made a rule that uncles, brothers, aunts, sisters, and other members of the tribe would no longer marry close relatives. In the beginning, everyone was puzzled. However, due to Fuxi's prestige, everyone reluctantly accepted it. Slowly, they realized that the deformities of the later generation were greatly reduced. Therefore, they began to admire Fuxi even more. When the granary was full, one would know etiquette. When one had enough food and clothing, one would know honor and disgrace. The human race gradually got rid of the problem of food and clothing. Perhaps it was because of the Fuxi zither that was born with the previous Fuxi. Fuxi was very proficient and interested in music. In his spare time, he also invented the zither and composed songs to enrich the lives of his people. At the same time, in order to better remember things, Fuxi invented the method of tying knots on ropes to record things. There was no written language in the human race at that time. After solving this series of problems, the human race once again entered a period of rapid development. Under Fuxi's leadership, the Fengyan tribe grew stronger and stronger. It was not only famous within a radius of thousands of miles. Even the entire human race began to spread Fuxi's wisdom. It was true that 10 years of hard work and no one asked about it, but one day he became famous. The Fengyan tribe also became one of the most powerful and prosperous tribes apart from the ancestral land. It was unknown whether it was because of the saints adding fuel to the fire behind the scenes, or because Fuxi's prestige had reached a certain level, or because he was driven by profit. In short, as the Fengyan tribe developed better and better, more and more people came to join them. Fuxi was finally recognized by the entire human race and was elected as the first leader of the human race. With one call, hundreds would respond. As the old problems were solved, new problems arose. In fact, this was not a new problem. After all, in the process of survival and development of the human race, they first faced the problem of food and clothing. Then, they faced the attacks of various fierce beasts, wild beasts, and monsters. Then, they faced the various natural disasters of nature. Now, the shamans and demons had retreated in defeat. When the other races knew that the human race was about to prosper, they all retreated. Therefore, except for some monsters and beasts that had no backing or spiritual intelligence, the human race faced very few attacks from the outside world. Coupled with Fushi's invention of fishing with nets, transplanting fruit trees, and breeding animals, the problem of food and clothing for the human race was greatly alleviated. The remaining problem was natural disasters. Chapter 1133. Natural and Man-Made Disasters. Why did they have to put natural disasters before man-made disasters when they talked about disasters? The meaning was self-evident. Natural disasters were much scarier than other disasters. Compared to food and clothing, attacks from ferocious beasts were the biggest problem facing the humankind. Because of food and clothing, even if they had to eat in the wind, they could still survive. It just depended on how they lived, whether they were struggling at death's door or living freely. As for ferocious beasts and monsters, they all had their own territories. As long as they didn't provoke them, it wouldn't be too big of a problem. Plus, they weren't too powerful. By using their advantages, they might be able to turn defeat into victory. Even if powerful monsters wreaked havoc, the humankind wasn't without powerful beings. The only problem was natural disasters. They were unpredictable and could be big or small. The big ones might be like the 5 fades of the heavens or immeasurable catastrophes. The small ones might be wind, frost, snow, rain, tsunami, and earthquake. Of course, what the humankind was facing now were naturally small natural disasters. But even so, ordinary people couldn't survive. That was because even the smallest natural disaster had a large area of effect, and its destructive power was stronger than that of ordinary people. A single snow disaster could kill tens of thousands of tribesmen within a 1,000-mile radius, turning this place into a dead zone. To wear the crown, one must bear its weight. Since Fushi was the ruler of the humankind, he naturally had to solve these problems. He had to think about other people's concerns. However, natural disasters weren't like food and clothing. For a moment, Fushi didn't know what to do. Thinking about it day and night, sighing, Fushi's strangeness naturally attracted the attention of others. However, Fushi's reputation was too high now. Ordinary people didn't dare to talk to him. Moreover, if Fushi was thinking about something important and was interrupted, even death wouldn't be enough to atone for it. Fortunately, while others didn't dare to speak, there were still people who didn't care. One day, when Huashu and Fushi were eating, she saw him frowning again. As a mother, how could she not care about her son? She asked, "My son, what's wrong? I've seen you frowning, tossing and turning in bed, sighing. Is there anything you can't solve? Why don't you tell me? 2 heads are better than 1. I might be able to help you." It's like this. Hearing Huashu's question, Fushi smiled and told her everything without hiding anything. He was under too much pressure, and he needed someone to listen to him. "My son is confused." Who would have thought that after hearing Fushi's words, Huashu laughed and scolded him. Under Fushi's confused gaze, she pointed in the direction of Yushue and said, "My son doesn't have a solution. Can't you ask your teacher?" Hearing this, Fushi's eyes widened, and he slapped his forehead as he was suddenly enlightened. He didn't even have time to say anything to his mother before he hurriedly rushed out to the Shura sovereign's residence. Ever since Fushi was 3 years old, he had been driven back to the human race by the Shura sovereign to take over the tribe's affairs. Apart from coming to pay his respects every year during festivals, Fushi would leave in a hurry. It wasn't that he was disrespectful to the Shura sovereign. If he was disrespectful, Fushi wouldn't have come. It was just that, as the leader of the tribe, and as the number of people under his jurisdiction increased, there were more and more things to deal with. Fushi really didn't have enough time. If he wasn't born to be a sage, he might have ended up like Zhuge Liang, dying before he could achieve anything. Even so, he was so busy that he didn't even have time to cultivate. It was fine when he was managing the original tribe, but as the tribe grew bigger, Fushi's cultivation almost stopped. If it wasn't for the human race's luck, his cultivation might have even regressed. Compared to Fushi's busy and tiring life, the Shura sovereign was simply too comfortable. As the teacher of the human sovereign, the better Fushi performed, the better the human race developed, and the more luck he would receive. The more luck he had, the smoother and faster his cultivation would be. Thanks to Mosquito Doran's good fortune, the Shura sovereign was born with the cultivation of an early zenith heaven golden immortal, catching up to the weaker Khanate gods. Then, as Fangqing Shan, Taoist one, and the world tree clone's cultivation level increased, the sea of blood's origin increased, and although Fangqing Shan and the others did not preach to them, their bloodline inheritance was just like the sorcerer tribe. The Shura sovereign's strength continued to increase. He was like the North Sea sky supporting turtle. Even in his sleep, his strength increased. All these years, the Shura sovereign had been suppressing his cultivation in order to lay the most solid foundation, and he would have broken through to the sage-to-be. Even so, he had reached the peak of the zenith heaven. This time, he was sent by Fangqing Shan to be the teacher of the human sovereign. Although it had only been a few decades, the harvest was unimaginable. The improvement of his state of mind was especially important. Coupled with the luck, the Shura sovereign's strength had broken through to the early sage-to-be, and he killed a corpse, which was the evil corpse. The spiritual treasure he used was none other than a spiritual treasure formed by the Blood Sea's origin, a top primordial spiritual treasure, the Halberd of Sin. In the Blood Sea, apart from Mosquito Doran's death scythe, the Xinyuan water control flag, Mingi's sword of Avicii, the Blood Azura flag, and the 12th grade Red Lotus of Fire, the Halberd of Sin was not a spiritual treasure. Speaking of this spiritual treasure, it had to be mentioned that Fangqing Shan had just broken through to the primordial origin. When Fangqing Shan had just broken through to the primordial origin, he had noticed that something was wrong with the Blood Sea. This was because Mosquito Doran had not completely controlled the Blood Sea's origin, just like Mingi. However, Mingi had not completely controlled the Blood Sea because of Mosquito Doran. In that case, what was going on this time? After thinking about it, Mosquito Doran and Fangqing Shan had a guess. Therefore, they had asked Mosquito Doran to make a trip to the West Ocean Sea to look at the place where they had obtained the Thunderclap flag. They had confirmed that the reason Mosquito Doran had not controlled the Blood Sea was because Hongjun Tiandao had interfered and bred a new living creature to replace Mosquito Doran. Unfortunately, man proposes, God disposes. Even God would miscalculate. As Mosquito Doran's cultivation level had broken through to the primordial origin, it had become higher and higher. Although the new living creature had hidden very well, he had still been discovered. Once he had been discovered, the outcome was predictable. Killing this new living creature had not only allowed Mosquito Doran to completely control the Blood Sea, but his cultivation level had also improved qualitatively. At the same time, he had also obtained two top-notch Khanate spiritual treasures. Mingi had the Sword of Avicii, the Blood Azura flag, and the Red Lotus of Fire. Mosquito Doran also had the Death Scythe and the Xinyuan water control flag. This new living creature also had the Halberd of Sin and the Devil Castle, which were two top-notch Khanate spiritual treasures. The Halberd of Sin and the Devil Castle were not weaker than the Sword of Avicii, the Blood Azura flag, the Red Lotus of Fire, the Death Scythe, and the Xinyuan water control flag. Chapter 1134. The Halberd of Sin and the Devil Castle were two top-notch Khanate numinous treasures. If Fangqing Shan had not broken through to the primordial chaos realm, he might have been happy to obtain them. However, Fangqing Shan and Mosquito Doran had broken through to the primordial chaos realm and had many Khanate cardinal treasures in their hands. Therefore, he was not too happy to obtain these two numinous treasures, as they were not of much use to Fangqing Shan and Mosquito Doran. Apart from shelving them, he could only bestow them to his disciples, or use them for trading. Shelving them would be a waste of God's gifts. If they were used for trading, they would only obtain numinous treasures of similar grades. Therefore, Fangqing Shan naturally had to bestow them to his disciples. In the Desolation world, Fangqing Shan and Mosquito Doran did not take in any disciples. The only ones close to them were the Azura clan, which Mosquito Doran had personally created. Moreover, the other numinous treasures nurtured by the origin power of the Blood Sea basically had their own homes. The Death Sickle had been integrated into the timeless arc by Feng Qingshan and turned into an eternal divine furnace unit to protect and escort Feng Qingshan when he expanded his territory. The Mystic Essence Water Control Flag and the other 4 5-element flags had merged to form the Khanate Cardinal Treasure 5-element flag, which had become his natal item. The Red Lotus of Hellfire had merged with several other Lotus platforms and become a top-notch Khanate Cardinal Treasure, the 24 Lotus platforms. The Yuan-Tu, Sword of Avicii, had been refined by Taoist One for many years, and it was very compatible with his great Tao. It had already surpassed the God-slaying spear in the past. If it was nurtured for a period of time or killed a lot of people, it would almost be a matter of time before it became a Khanate Cardinal Treasure. The only thing that had not changed much was the blood-colored Azura flag. Feng Qingshan had already decided to leave the Desolation World. Once he left, he would definitely not leave behind cardinal treasures like the Red Lotus of Hellfire. Moreover, an innocent man would get into trouble because of his wealth. Even if he stayed behind, the Shura Sovereign wouldn't be able to protect him with his strength. Originally, because of him, the Blood Sea didn't attract the favor of Hongjun Tiandao and the Saints. If there was such a temptation, it wouldn't be a blessing, but a personal execution of the Shura Sovereign. After all, the world was bustling for benefits, and the world was bustling for benefits. When the red karmic fire lotus was in Feng Qingshan's hands, no one dared to covet it. But in the Shura Sovereign's hands, it was like a 3-year-old holding a gold brick in a busy market. Treasures like the red karmic fire lotus couldn't be left behind, but the blood Azura flag was far too thin. It just so happened that he had obtained the Halberd of Sin and the Fiend Castle. Thus, Feng Qingshan left the blood Azura flag, the Halberd of Sin, and the Fiend Castle to the Azura Sovereign. With those 3 top-notch numinous treasures, it was enough to stabilize the Blood Sea and the Azura race's luck. In fact, apart from suppressing the Blood Sea and the Azura clan's providence, Feng Qingshan had another purpose. That was to give the Shura Sovereign a chance to enter the primordial chaos realm. If he wanted to break through to the primordial chaos realm and walk the path of cutting the 3 corpses, he had to combine the 3 corpses into one. If he wanted to combine the 3 corpses into one, he would need spiritual treasures of the same origin. For example, the Khanate 5-direction flags that Feng Qingshan had used to cut the corpses, or the 3 clear breaths that Lao Zi had used to cut the corpses. The Blood Azura flag, the Halberd of Sin, and the Fiend Castle were all spiritual treasures born from the origin of the Blood Sea. It could be said that they had the same origin. Using them to cut the corpses might not be as good as using the 4 heaven lamps or the 3 books of heaven, earth, and man, but the chances of them becoming one were much higher than the other spiritual treasures. Therefore, the Shura Sovereign had used the Halberd of Sin to cut the evil corpse. When a human sovereign's merit was complete and he returned to his position, he would have merit. He could also borrow the merit to cut the good corpse with the Blood Azura flag. As for his obsession, the Shura Sovereign didn't use the Fiend Castle. It wasn't that the Fiend Castle wasn't good, but he had better choices. The Shura Sovereign used another top-notch Khanate spiritual treasure, the bloodthirsty Jade Seal, to cut the obsession. Speaking of which, the bloodthirsty Jade Seal was also extraordinary. It was different from the situation when the Underworld River created the Azura clan. When Mosquito Dauren created the Azura clan, he was at the primordial chaos realm. The materials and utensils he used were not comparable to the Underworld River. Therefore, the Shura Sovereign's cultivation caught up with the Khanate gods when he was born, even though he was only at the early stage Zenith Heaven Golden Immortal. In addition to the difference in potential and heritage, the first batch of Azura clan members were born with accompanying spiritual treasures. These were transformed from the blood-colored clothes that wrapped around them. Some were in the form of knives, spears, swords, halberds, axes, hooks, and forks, as well as clothes, shoes, hats, and hats. As the emperor of the Azura clan, the most suitable spiritual treasure for the Shura Sovereign was naturally an authority treasure like the Jade Seal. The most important thing was that this spiritual treasure could be upgraded along with the cultivation of the host. The bloodthirsty jade seal was initially a superior grade connate spiritual treasure. However, due to the improvement of the Shura sovereign's strength and the assistance of the Blood Sea, it had broken through to become a top-notch connate spiritual treasure. Although it was still inferior to the blood-colored Azura flag, it would catch up sooner or later. In the future, if the Shura sovereign's 3 corpses became one and broke through to the primordial chaos realm, it might be possible, just like how the connate 5-element flag broke through to the connate cardinal treasure 5-element flag. Why is Fushi here? Beside the Yu River, Shura's sovereign, who was daydreaming, opened his eyes when he sensed Fushi's aura. He was a little surprised. He didn't know why Fushi, who was a workaholic, would suddenly come here to see him. Disciple Fushi greets master. Before long, Fushi arrived in front of the hut where the Shura sovereign had lived when he first studied and was about to kneel before the house. All right, how many times have I told you? You have a distinguished status now, so you don't have to kneel before me. Before Fushi could kneel, an invisible force lifted him up, and the Shura sovereign's voice resounded in the hall. A teacher for a day is a father for life. Kneeling to the heavens, kneeling to the earth, and kneeling to one's parents is the great Tao of heaven and earth. However, Fushi shook his head. All right, tell me, shouldn't you be handling the affairs of the tribe at this time? Why do you have the time to come here? The Shura sovereign knew that he could not convince Fushi, so he did not say much and led him into the hut before changing the topic. It's like this. When Fushi heard this, he hurriedly told the Shura sovereign about the troubles that had kept him from eating and drinking recently. He even added a sentence at the end. He even added, "Moreover, I have a feeling that this matter is very important to me." Hearing Fushi's words, the Shura sovereign immediately took it seriously. He pinched his fingers and divined the heavenly secrets, but he still could not figure it out. He could not help but frown slightly. "What's the matter, master?" Seeing this, Fushi could not help but sigh. "Don't worry." Seeing Fushi's expression, the Shura sovereign chuckled. "Although I don't have a way, I still have the patriarch. He definitely has a way." Patriarch? A trace of doubt flashed in Fushi's eyes. That's right. The Bloodsea Patriarch is a primordial chaos expert. In the entire world, apart from the Hongjun Tiandao Daozu, he does not even care about sages. The Shura sovereign had a proud expression. "In that case, I'll have to trouble master." Upon hearing that, Fushi was overjoyed. Chapter 1135. The Blood Sea. It was a rare opportunity. Although Fong Qingshan had yet to return, he was still observing and comprehending the reincarnation laws in the underworld. Even Mosquito Dowren and the World Tree clone did not stay in the Blood Sea. Mosquito Dowren was used as a Tao protector to deal with Fong Qingshan falling into a state of enlightenment. There was a sudden change in the outside world. As for the World Tree clone, it was also comprehending with Fong Qingshan at the moment. On one hand, the two of them comprehended faster, had better effects, and comprehended more. On the other hand, the reincarnation law was also a part of the World Tao. If the World Tree clone comprehended it, it would be very beneficial. Although Fong Qingshan and the other two were not in the Blood Sea, there was still someone in charge of the situation. It was not the 3 corpses, but the Blood God clone that Fong Qingshan had created. There were 480 million Blood God clones. Although the strongest one was not as strong as Mosquito Dowren and the World Tree clone, it was not weaker than the 3 corpses clone of the Saint. With them in charge of the Blood Sea, other than Hongjun Tiandao attacking personally or a group of saints, a single saint would not be able to do anything. Therefore, the Shura sovereign did not make a wasted trip. He met Fong Qingshan in the Blood Sea Hall. "Greetings, Patriarch." The Shura sovereign first bowed to Fong Qingshan respectfully, and then told him the purpose of his return. "Ancestor Fushi has recently come to ask me for help. He wants to resolve the natural disaster of the human race, and he said that this matter is related to his Tao. I have divined the secrets of the heavens, but I don't know what's going on, so I came to ask for your help." That's easy. When Fang Qingshan heard this, he instantly understood what was going on. The 3 sovereigns and 5 emperors ruled the world, and each had their own merits. Yu the Great controlled the flood, Xin Yuan unified the human race, Shin Nong tasted herbs, and so on. Fuxi's greatest merit was naturally the Fuxi 8 trigrams. With this 8 trigrams, even an ordinary person would be able to calculate the secrets of heaven and predict fortune and misfortune. If he wanted to comprehend this, he had no choice but to rely on a precious treasure of the deduction sect. It was Di Jun's companion spiritual treasure, the river diagram of the ancient book. At the last moment of the great Magi-Demon War, Kuan Peng saw that the demon race was about to lose, so he made a prompt decision and took away Di Jun's book of Luo river diagram. Since then, he hid in the northern underworld sea and never showed up again. Originally, according to the original plan, the disciples of the 3 sects should have gone to the north underworld to threaten and bribe the Kuan Peng with the sect master's precious treasure. It was just that the human sovereign's master was the surest sovereign, so these people naturally wouldn't do anything unnecessary, making wedding clothes for others. However, to Fang Qingshan, it was not a big deal. Kuan Peng was a very sensible person. Back then, he could not defeat Di Juntai. In order to survive, he even handed over a wisp of his natal primordial spirit and fused it into the demon's summoning flag. In the original plan, he had already sat on the cattail hassock in the Purple Cloud Palace. He was affected by the red clouds and had to give up the cattail because of Sanqing's power. Fuxi proved his Tao. The disciples of the 3 sects, Great Master Xiandu, Guang Qingzi, many treasures, and the others came to ask for the river diagram of the ancient book. Although they had the precious treasures of the 3 sects, the Tai Chi diagram, the Pangu flag, and the fairy slaying sword formation, their cultivation was not high. It should be known that even when it came to the Great War of the Gods, they had not broken through to be a sage to be. Although the precious treasure could increase one's combat power, it still depended on the person using it. It also depended on who the person was facing. The 3 sky fairies in the 9 Bends Yellow River Formation were so powerful, and Kong Xian under the Golden Chicken Ridge was so high-spirited. They felt like they could dominate the world and hold the pass against 10,000 enemies. However, when Primordial Being and Juni attacked, they were easily suppressed. Although Kuan Peng was not a saint, he was also not like the 12 Golden Immortals, Immortal, and Dipong. Although many treasures and the others had precious treasures, they could not threaten Kuan Peng at all. One should know that back then, Di Jun and Tai both had the Bell of Chaos, but in the end, they had to rely on the Zhodian star formation to suppress Kuan Peng. That was then, and this was now. Back then, Kuan Peng did not have cultivation, and he did not have spiritual treasures. Now, after the witch and demon trial, Kuan Peng's cultivation had skyrocketed, catching up to Di Jun and the others. He had broken through to the peak of sage to be. In addition to the Demon Master Palace, he also had the river diagram of the ancient book. If it was not for Laozi, Niuhua, and the other sages and the general trend, he would not have given up the 10 great primordial spiritual treasures of desolation. Similarly, since Kuan Peng had retreated in front of the disciples of Laozi and the others, would he dare to fight against the surest sovereign who was born in the Blood Sea? To know that back then, Fang Qingshan had almost destroyed the demon clan. Therefore, Fang Qingshan was not at all worried that there would be a problem with the surest sovereign retrieving the river diagram. He was certain that Kuan Peng would not dare to play any tricks. Take this spiritual treasure and find Kuan Peng in the North Underworld. With that, Fang Qingshan took out 2 supreme treasures and handed them over to the surest sovereign. One was a primordial spiritual treasure. Although it couldn't compare to the Book of Luo and River Diagram, it was still a top-notch spiritual treasure. The other was a treasure from the Blood Sea, the 24-rank red karmic fire lotus. He has Di Jun's companion spiritual treasure, the river diagram of the ancient book. This is the key to Fuxi's enlightenment. Ask Kuan Peng to hand over this spiritual treasure. If he knows what's good for him, give it to him. If he doesn't, teach him a lesson with the red lotus of fire. After obtaining the book of Luo river diagram, I'll throw it into the Luo river. After Fuxi proves his Tao, I'll bring it back. This spiritual treasure was very useful to Feng Qingshan. He planned on integrating the river diagram into the Timeless Arc and using it as an AI. It will make up for the Timeless Arc's special abilities outside of offense and defense. It will strengthen the foundation for the Timeless Arc to break through to the honorable realm. Yes. Hearing Feng Qingshan's words, the Shura sovereign still had some questions. However, he didn't say much. He accepted the two treasures and retreated. Then, he turned into a ray of red light and left the Blood Sea. He headed straight for the North Underworld. The North Underworld. Ever since the Great Sorcerer and Demon War, Kuan Peng has never left the North Underworld. He also locked down the entire North Underworld. The reason for this was because Kuan Peng was a cautious person. Also, he knew that after the Great Sorcerer and Demon War, the shaman race had become a thing of the past. When the Sorcerer and Demon War dominated the desolation, he offended many people. He was also heavily injured in the Great Sorcerer and Demon War, so he had to be careful. After all, whether it was for revenge or for profit, he was a pushover back then. Fortunately, for some reason, maybe it was luck, maybe it was his defense, or maybe the others weren't sure. It allowed him to live through that terrible period of time in peace. Furthermore, with the help of the luck from escaping the Great Calamity, not only did his injuries recover, his cultivation also soared, and he finally became the most powerful existence below the saints. However, he still didn't open the North Underworld. It wasn't that he couldn't, but that he didn't want to, because the desolation now was no longer the desolation of the past. He knew that this was the era of the sage. Chapter 11:36. Although the sage had appeared before the Great Shaman Demon War, but at that time, the witch and demon races were at their peak. Not only did the two clans each have a sage, but they also had a clan guarding formation that could fight against sages. Most importantly, at that time, the Lich was the main character of the world and was favored by fate. Therefore, even the sage had to retreat. After all, the saint had to obey the will of the heavens and the people. Otherwise, thinking about sect master Tongtian's futile attempt to seize a chance of survival for his disciples, the consequences of going against the heavens could be seen. During the Great Shaman Demon War, both races suffered great losses and were forced to retreat from the Desolation Continent. The era of the sages had finally arrived. Although Kuan Peng made use of the Great Tribulation to break through to the pinnacle of quasi-sage, it was no longer his era. Although he was considered a top-notch expert in desolation, he was still vulnerable in the eyes of sage. Didn't you see Dong Huangtai, who was known as the #1 person below the saints, holding the Bell of Chaos in such a manner? Furthermore, at the final juncture of the Great Shaman Demon War, his escape was the straw that broke the camel's back. As a result, he offended Nuwa and was seen as a traitor. Therefore, Kuan Peng has been trying to weaken its presence. At the same time, there were two other reasons for not opening the Northern Sea. On one hand, he had to refine the book of Luo river diagram that he risked becoming a traitor of the demon race to steal. For some reason, ever since he obtained this treasure, he couldn't completely refine it. It was just like how Dong Huangtai could not completely refine the Bell of Chaos, and how the Styx could not completely refine the Blood Sea. They were always a little short. It was unknown whether it was because their fated chance had not arrived, or if they were not fated, or if there were other reasons. On one hand, he was prepared to use the Northern Dark Sea to do something, and at the same time, leave behind a life-saving divine art for himself. After offending Nuwa, Kuan Peng lost the support of the demon tribe. Although his cultivation had broken through the peak of Sage to Be, he still had an incomplete Jotian star formation. But he did not feel safe at all. Everyone below the Sage was an ant. He wanted to ensure that he would not be easily manipulated by the sages and become an ant that could die at any time. There were three ways. One was naturally like Fong Qingshan and Mosquito Daoren, who directly broke through Hongjun Tiandao and broke through to primordial chaos. As long as one had the strength, not to mention the sages, even Hongjun and Hongjun Tiandao could not do anything to them. However, this idea only ran through Kuan Peng's mind once before it was thrown to the back of his mind. When Fong Qingshan broke through all those years ago, he made use of the primordial violet qi to negotiate with Hongjun Tiandao instead of directly breaking Hongjun Tiandao. Kuan Peng was conceited and felt that he was no less talented than Di Jun, Tai Yi, and the others. However, if Fong Qingshan could not do it, it was obvious that he could not do it either. Other than relying on absolute strength to watch the situation unfold, the second method was merit. Merit was truly an all-purpose thing. It can assist in cultivation, refine numinous treasures, erase negative karma, heal injuries. There are only things that you can't think of and can't do without merit. With a certain amount of merit, one could even become a sage immediately. Even if one could not defeat the enemy and become a sage, as long as one became a supreme person like the three sovereigns of heaven, earth, and man, even a sage would have to be respectful. It was not difficult to obtain merit, but it was not easy to obtain a large amount of it, especially after becoming a lich. Before becoming a lich, one could establish a religion, create humans, create reincarnation, mend the sky, and so on. After becoming a lich, one could only rely on the human clan. However, the human clan was now considered a forbidden territory by the sages. Not everyone could get involved like the Shura sovereign. Kuan Peng had created the demon language and become a demon master, so he had a lot of merit. However, if he wanted to reach the level of the three sovereigns of heaven, earth, and man and condense the golden body of merit, the golden wheel was clearly still far from enough. He did not have enough power, and he did not have any merit. Then there was only one method left. This method was inspired by Kuan Peng when he thought of the Blood Sea. As the master of the Blood Sea, as long as the Blood Sea did not dry up, the master of the Blood Sea would not die. Therefore, he planned to connect himself with a northern underworld origin and imitate the Blood Sea. Once he died, the entire northern underworld sea would collapse. This would increase his ability to protect himself. Actually, this method was not uncommon in the future. In the world of Shu Mountain, old demon Sand God had long predicted that he would be killed. He knew that he might not be able to escape, so he spent 360 years to cast a spell at the peak of West Kunlun in the Sea of Constellations. He used a secret spell to restrict the water source of the Yellow River. If he really encountered a strong enemy and was not a match for him, he did not even need to move his hands. He only needed to think about it, and he could attack. He would immediately shake off the water source, causing the entire Sea of Constellations to pour down, causing the mountains and rivers of the southeast to return to desolation. He would perish together with the enemy. Such an arrangement made others cautious. No one dared to force him to take risks out of desperation and create a boundless catastrophe. Kuan Peng was also prepared to take this path. With this insurance, even a sage would not dare to do anything to him. After all, although the northern underworld sea was not as important as the Blood Sea, once it was broken, it would cause a lot of negative karma. Even if it did not knock a sage out of his sage position, it would at least greatly damage his vitality. To suffer such a huge loss for a mere Kuan Peng was clearly not worth it. Unfortunately, these two things were not that easy to achieve. Because the Book of Luo River Diagram was not fated with him, Kuan Peng could only rely on painstaking efforts. If he could completely refine this treasure before Fushi proved his Tao, he might really be able to completely use it for his own use. This could also be considered a glimmer of hope for survival under Hongjun Tiandao. Unfortunately, there was not enough time. It was already too late. And refining the origin of the northern underworld sea was a slow and meticulous work. A little carelessness could lead to the result that not only could he not achieve coexistence with the northern underworld sea, but he could also be seriously injured or even become Taoist. Just when Kuan Peng hid in the small building and became unified, regardless of spring, summer, autumn, and winter. On this day, his heart suddenly palpitated, as if something big had happened. In this regard, a haze suddenly rose in Kuan Peng's heart. It was a sudden impulse, and it was a bad premonition. This was not a good sign. Shura's sovereign, Wintunarin of the Blood Sea sect, has specially come to pay a visit to the Demon Master. Please meet him. Before Kuan Peng could figure out what was going on, at this moment, a blood-colored escape light descended from the sky above the northern underworld sea. Following that, a voice passed through the layers of arrays and sounded in the northern underworld sea, clearly entering Kuan Peng's ears. How could it be him? Hearing the person's self-introduction, Kuan Peng's face lost its color. When one sits at home, disaster comes from the sky. To Kuan Peng, there was nothing scarier than hearing that someone from the Blood Sea was here. Because Fong Qingshan, Mosquito Daoran, was his deepest fear. After all, back then, he personally saw Niwa fall in the hands of Fong Qingshan. Even Dao Fathers, who looked up to the lofty mountain, were unable to take down Fong Qingshan. Most importantly, he had no relationship with the Blood Sea. Because of the relationship between the foreign kind and Niwa, they were still in a state of hostility. As the saying went, one would not visit a temple for no reason. How could he not think too much about the sudden visit from a Blood Sea? Therefore, right now, his expression was uncertain. You're tuning into the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.